It tears you up, literally tears you up.
First at 5, a 51-year-old murder mystery solved. Today, the Cobb County District Attorney revealed the name of the man who kidnapped, raped, and killed a 9-year-old girl in 1972.
On January 13, 1972, a tragic event unfolded when 9-year-old Debbie Lynn Randall, a young third grader, disappeared while returning home from a nearby laundromat in Marietta, Georgia. Her disappearance sparked a massive search, involving thousands, but it ended in heartbreak. 16 days later, on January 29, 1972, Debbie's body was discovered, revealing she had been the victim of a horrific assault and strangulation. This case, unsolved for decades, finally saw a breakthrough in 2023. Who was responsible for Debbie's death? And how was this cold case finally solved? Marietta, Georgia, a key city in Cobb County and part of the Atlanta metropolitan area, boasts a population of nearly 61,000. Steeped in history, its roots trace back to early settlers near the Cherokee town of Big Shanty, now known as Kennesaw. The heart of Marietta features the historic Marietta Square, embodying the city's rich past. Known for the iconic Big Chicken structure, a landmark since 1963, Marietta blends historical charm with modern suburban life. Strategically located between Kennesaw and Smyrna, it's well connected by major routes like U.S. Route 41, State Route 3, and Interstate 75. Despite its appealing aspects, the city, like many others, is not immune to crime, as highlighted by the cold case of Debbie Lynn Randall, recently solved in 2023.
The answer we are providing today will not bring her back, and we can't extract justice from the perpetrator. But I know he must answer to a higher power.
On August 21, 1962, in the quiet town of Marietta, Georgia, a little girl named Debbie Lynn Randall was born, bringing joy to her parents, John Randall and Juanita Wheeler Randall. Growing up, Debbie attended Pine Forest Elementary School and was in the 3rd grade in 1972. Her gentle and kind nature quickly made her a favorite among her peers, not just within the school, but also in the wider community. Debbie was well-loved and known for her sweet demeanor. Debbie's home was often filled with warmth and affection, a testament to her endearing personality. Visitors frequently brought dolls for her, a sign of their fondness. These dolls were more than just toys. They symbolized the community's love for her. At home, Debbie shared a special bond with her older brother, Melvin Randall. Their sibling relationship was deep and caring. Melvin, being the protective and loving big brother, always strived to fulfill any wish that Debbie had. This bond illustrated the close-knit nature of their family. Debbie's life, full of dreams and youthful aspirations, was tragically cut short, leaving a profound void in her family and community. January 13, 1972 seemed like any other evening in the Randall household in Marietta. Debbie, a lively young girl, was with her mother Juanita, while her brother Melvin was resting due to feeling unwell. The evening unfolded routinely, with Juanita in the kitchen preparing dinner, awaiting the return of John, Debbie's father. That evening, as she often did, Debbie sought permission to go play at the nearby playground, a familiar and safe spot, just a short walk from their home. Along with this, Juanita asked her to pick up some washing powder from the laundromat across the street. Debbie cheerfully agreed, promising to return before dinner. The playground, a mere 5-minute stroll, was part of Debbie's regular routine, where she'd usually spend an hour playing after school. Juanita expected her back in about an hour and a half. However, as time passed, and Debbie did not return, worry started to set in. It was unlike Debbie to miss her curfew, or to be late without informing her. As the evening progressed and there was still no sign of Debbie, Juanita's concern escalated. When John arrived home around 9:45 p.m., they still had no information about Debbie's whereabouts. Their worry transformed into panic as they realized that this was far from normal for Debbie. The family immediately sprang into action, with Melvin, despite being unwell, joining the search. The neighborhood, usually a hub of activity, was now the center of a growing concern. Melvin went around asking if anyone had seen Debbie, but no one had any information beyond her leaving the house earlier. Juanita and John rushed to the playground, only to find it deserted, and then to the laundromat, which was closed. The streets were quiet, and every passing minute felt heavier with the absence of their daughter. The discovery of a box of washing powder on the road near their home heightened their fears, a stark reminder that something was amiss. Fighting back tears and driven by a mother's instinct, Juanita decided to contact the police. However, they faced the procedural hurdle that less than 24 hours had passed since Debbie's disappearance, meaning an official missing persons report could not yet be filed. Despite this, the police assured them that they would do all they could to locate Debbie. The community rallied around the Randall family, offering support and assistance in the search. In the days that followed, about 4,000 volunteers, including Debbie's brother Melvin, canvassed the city. Flyers bearing Debbie's face and a plea for her safe return blanketed the streets. The local police, equally committed, investigated every possible lead. They confirmed from the laundromat owner that Debbie had indeed picked up the washing powder. But what happened in the brief interval between her visit there and her disappearance remained a mystery. The search extended beyond the immediate neighborhood. Friends who were with Debbie at the playground were interviewed, but none could shed light on her whereabouts. As days turned into weeks, the Randall family and the community clung to hope, even as it dwindled with each passing day. 16 agonizing days later, on January 29, 1972, a group of Southern Tech students who had been diligently assisting the police made a heart-wrenching discovery. In a wooded area off Johnson Ferry Road, they found Debbie's body. The scene was grim. Her body was partially clothed, bearing signs of a fierce struggle, as if she had fought valiantly for her life. The killer had seemingly used Debbie's own coat to muffle her cries for help. The discovery painted a horrifying picture of the ordeal Debbie must have endured. It appeared that the perpetrator had been stalking her, waiting for the opportune moment to abduct her. This ruthless individual subjected Debbie to a terrifying experience across various locations, before ultimately discarding her body in the woods. The community, which had come together in hope and determination, now united in grief. The tragic news of the discovery of Debbie's body sent shockwaves of sorrow through Marietta. For Juanita and John Randall, the sight of their daughter's lifeless form was an overwhelming blow. A nightmare turned into a devastating reality. The loss of Debbie, a beloved daughter, sister, and friend, left a deep scar on the hearts of all who knew her. The community mourned together, sharing in the Randall's family unimaginable grief as they grappled with the cruel fate that had befallen young Debbie. Following the tragic discovery of Debbie Lynn Randall's body, the investigation into her death intensified. The coroner's examination revealed harrowing details. Debbie had been strangled and assaulted, with deep marks on her body indicating the severe pain she endured. A critical discovery during this examination was a strand of hair, unidentified but potentially belonging to her assailant. This finding represented a possible breakthrough in the case. However, the limitations of medical technology in the 1970s posed a significant challenge. The ability to analyze such evidence was in its infancy, rendering the hair sample more of a hope for the future rather than an immediate solution. The hair was carefully preserved in anticipation of a time when advancements in technology might shed light on Debbie's killer. Days turned into months as detectives followed hundreds of leads. Each lead, initially promising, ultimately led to a dead end. Despite their tireless efforts, law enforcement found themselves trapped in a frustrating loop, unable to uncover the crucial clues needed to solve the case. This prolonged uncertainty and lack of closure left the Randall family grappling with haunting questions. They pondered over what exactly transpired on that tragic night, and who bore the responsibility for their daughter's untimely demise. They faced the dual agony of losing their beloved Debbie and the relentless frustration of justice remaining elusive. As years passed and leads dwindled, Debbie's case gradually transitioned from an active investigation to a cold case. For nearly 28 years, the puzzle of her murder remained unsolved, a source of enduring heartache and mystery. The Randall family, along with the Marietta community, were left to wonder if the truth behind Debbie's tragic end would ever come to light. The case, steeped in unanswered questions and unfulfilled justice, lingered in the collective memory of those who knew and loved Debbie. However, in 2001, the unresolved mystery of Debbie Lynn Randall's case received a new lease on life. Detective Morris Nix, unable to shake off the haunting memory of this cold case, revisited old files. Among these, he found Debbie's case and sensed overlooked details in the initial investigation from 1972. Determined to find answers, Detective Morris reopened the case. He unearthed the evidence box, long stored away, and rediscovered the strand of unidentified hair preserved from the crime scene. Although the FBI conducted numerous tests, the technology of the early 2000s was still not advanced enough to identify the hair's owner. So the case waited, pending future technological advancements. The case remained unresolved until 2015, when Detective Morris joined the Cobb County Cold Case Unit. With fresh eyes and advanced medical science, the case gained new momentum. Media coverage helped bring forward Sandra Walker, one of the kids who played with Debbie on that fateful evening. Sandra's testimony, previously silenced by fear, added a chilling dimension to the case. She recounted the terrifying details of witnessing Debbie's abduction, a memory that remained vivid years later. To engage the community and jog memories, police collaborated with a graphic designer and a freelance artist, Amanda Wood. Wood spent months creating a visual representation of Debbie's last moments, a poignant and emotionally charged portrayal reflecting Debbie's innocence and the monstrous nature of her assault. John, Debbie's father, clung to every newspaper article about his daughter's disappearance, a constant reminder of the unresolved mystery. Meanwhile, Detective Morse sent a piece of cloth found on Debbie's body, adorned with floral prints, to the Sorensen Forensic Lab for DNA analysis. Technological advancements allowed for the construction of a partial DNA profile of an unknown man. Despite challenges by 2019, with additional funding from the Criminal Justice Coordination Council, renewed DNA testing opened new avenues for the investigation. The case, once stagnant, now moved towards potentially finding the answers that the Randall family and the Marietta community had been seeking for decades. In 2023, a significant breakthrough in Debbie Lynn Randall's cold case came to light, thanks to the advances in genetic genealogy. The police collaborated with DNA Labs International and embarked on a mission to create an SNP, single nucleotide polymorphism profile. The reason behind this was because despite initial efforts, including the analysis of evidence and searches in the Combined DNA Indexing System, or CODES, no results were forthcoming. The SNP profile is a more detailed and informative type of genetic profiling than traditional methods. It involved a meticulous process of combing through public records and police resources. Their goal was to find a DNA match for an individual related to the case. Once a match was identified, the investigators quickly set to work building a detailed family tree. They traced as many family members of the suspected assailant as possible. In a move that demonstrated the evolving nature of police work and community involvement, the police reached out to the family members of the identified suspect. Remarkably, the family members cooperated willingly, providing their DNA samples for testing. This was a pivotal moment in the investigation, showcasing the power of community cooperation in solving long-standing mysteries. After conducting all necessary tests, the DNA evidence collected from the crime scene made a conclusive match. The killer was identified as William B. Rose, from Mableton, Georgia. This revelation was a monumental moment for the Randall family and the Marietta community, who had waited over 5 decades for answers. William B. Rose, born in 1950, remains an enigmatic figure due to the limited information about his early life, parents, and work. His life took a dark turn when, at the age of 22, he abducted and killed Debbie Randall. But in an unexpected twist, when police looked up Rose to try and apprehend him in 2023, they found something they did not expect. 2 years after his heinous act of murdering Debbie, Rose ended his own life in 1974, driven by a consuming fear of being caught by the police. This fear was evident even during a previous arrest for an alcohol-related incident. Rose's identity as Debbie's killer was unexpected, as he never appeared on the police radar during the initial investigation. The families of Rose and Debbie lived in the same complex, suggesting that Rose might have seen Debbie at the nearby playground, laying the groundwork for his sinister plan. In 2023, to confirm his identity as the perpetrator, the police exhumed Rose's body, and tests conclusively identified him as the one who tragically ended Debbie Randall's life. The revelation of William B. Rose as the perpetrator brought a bittersweet closure to Debbie Lynn Randall's long-standing case. Tragically, Debbie's parents, Juanita and John Randall, passed away before this discovery. Juanita in 2018 after a battle with leukemia, and John in 2022. The enduring pain of losing Debbie at such a young age was a burden they carried for decades. Melvin, Debbie's brother, expressed his relief and gratitude, saying,
"It's a great loss, it still is, I think about it, but it's just glad that it's over." My mother, that was her wish, that she would be alive to find out what happened. And unfortunately, we lost her, but the rest of the family, we've always wondered.
Retired Detective Morris Nix acknowledged how technology played a crucial role in solving the case.
Technology does not get old, it doesn't retire, it doesn't get sick, and it doesn't quit. Technology was seeking William Rose, and it found him in the grave. I prayed, I hoped, but I just thought, if he made a mistake, if he left something behind, we're going to find it.
What are your thoughts on how this case was solved after decades? Do you think Rose killing Debbie was something he had planned for, or was it an impulsive decision? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. If there's a specific case you'd like us to cover, feel free to drop your suggestions in the comments section below. For more captivating true crime stories, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel.
Cold case homicides are some of the most complicated and difficult investigations that any investigator can take on.
On the morning of September 28, 1981, police went to Kempton's apartment to serve her a court summons for unpaid parking tickets. When police arrived, they saw her apartment had been broken into, and her lifeless body was inside with signs of sexual assault and blunt force trauma to the head. We now know that Ronnie James Lee was behind the murder. He would have been 21 at the time.
On September 28, 1981, a tragic mystery unfolded in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, when 23-year-old Laura Kempton's life was abruptly cut short. Laura was a young lady with big dreams and aspirations. She was studying to be a hairstylist at the Portsmouth Beauty School and also an aspiring model who had posed for a few photo shoots which were displayed at a local salon. She had been out the previous night socializing with a friend and was last seen returning to her apartment alone in the early hours. During the morning hours, a police officer intending to deliver a court summons found Laura's body in her apartment. A subsequent autopsy revealed a fatal trauma to the left side of her head. What led to this tragic end? And who was responsible for Laura's untimely demise? Portsmouth, New Hampshire, with a population of around 21,956, is a historic seaport and a bustling summer tourist destination on the Piscataqua River. This charming city, once home to the Strategic Air Command's Peace Air Force Base, now features Portsmouth International Airport at Peace. Renowned for its focus on historic preservation, Portsmouth was named one of the dozen distinctive destinations by the National Trust for Historic Preservation in 2008. Its compact, walkable downtown area, especially around Market Square, is a magnet for tourists and artists, celebrated annually with Market Square Day. Despite this idyllic setting, Portsmouth, like many urban areas, has experienced challenges with urban renewal and changing demographics. In this scenic city, the Laura Kempton case, an unsolved crime for years, adds a darker note to its history. Laura Kempton, born on July 3, 1958, had a deep connection with Portsmouth, New Hampshire long before she moved there in 1980. Growing up in Durham, just a 20-minute drive away, she was no stranger to Portsmouth's lively music and club scene, a stark contrast to her quieter hometown. This familiarity likely made her transition to Portsmouth feel like a natural step into adulthood. In 1981, Laura settled into a ground-floor apartment on Chapel Street, strategically located near Portsmouth Beauty School, where she was honing her skills to become a hairdresser. Just 6 months away from achieving her dream, she chose this place for its convenience to both school and bustling city life. Laura's life in Portsmouth was active and vibrant. She balanced her time between attending beauty school and working part-time jobs. She scooped ice cream for summer tourists at Karen's Ice Cream and worked at Marco Polo, a quirky gift shop on Market Street. These jobs not only supported her education, but also kept her connected to the city's pulse. Known for her striking appearance, tall with a strong jawline and captivating dark eyes, Laura had even dabbled in modeling. Her apartment's proximity to the heart of Portsmouth allowed her to immerse herself in the city's vibrant nightlife. She often spent evenings dancing and socializing with friends at popular spots, like the Ranger Club and the Riverside. Laura was an outgoing individual, enjoying the company of others and the energetic atmosphere of those venues. Romantically, Laura wasn't tied down, but was casually seeing a man named Charlie, a saxophonist, who played at Luca's, a local restaurant. Her social life, filled with music, dancing, and friendships, painted a picture of a young woman fully embracing the prime of her life in a city that offered her both the comforts of familiarity and the excitement of new experiences. On a fateful Monday morning, September 28, 1981, at 9:30 a.m., Officer Ron Gravois, a seasoned member of the Portsmouth Police Department, was carrying out his routine duties in downtown Portsmouth. He was familiar with the area's historic brick sidewalks, a testament to his years on the force. His destination that morning was a quaint wood-framed apartment building at 20 Chapel Street. He had an official court summons for a resident there, a young lady who had accumulated parking meter violations over the past year. As Officer Gravois approached the building, he noticed the front door was unlocked. He was looking for apartment number 2, conveniently located on the first floor near the entry. But something was off. The upper left panel of the apartment door was missing. This unusual sight gave him a view into the apartment, where a disturbing scene awaited him. Through the broken door, a disordered scene was visible. A beam of light shone on an untidy pile of bedding near the entrance. Alarmingly, a pair of legs, bound at the ankles with white cord, protruded from the blankets. The officer immediately stepped back, his initial purpose forgotten. After a quick check of the hallway and stairwell, confirming no immediate threats, he secured the scene. With a sense of urgency, he called for backup on his radio, knowing that what he had stumbled upon was far beyond a simple court summons delivery. On the Saturday evening of September 26, 1981, Laura Kempton's life in Portsmouth took a fateful turn. That night, she was at the Riverside Club, a favorite spot where the new wave music she loved filled the air. There, she met her date for the night, a man we'll call JR, due to his name not being made available. They danced and connected, leading Laura to invite him back to her apartment after the club closed. At about 1:30 a.m., they made a quick stop by her apartment at 20 Chapel Street. But they were only there for 30 minutes before heading out once more to get dinner. JR came back with Laura at 3 in the morning, where he stayed the night. The next morning, September 27th, Laura and JR shared a quick breakfast at Goldie's Deli around 9:30 a.m. Laura had a shift at Macro Polo, a novelty gift shop where she worked starting at 10 a.m. She left JR at the deli to make it to work on time. Later that afternoon, around 4:30 or 5:30 p.m., Laura took a break from her work to grab some food from Cafe Petronella. A waitress there noted Laura seemed in a hurry, likely eager to return to work with her shift ending at 7 p.m. After work, Laura went home to relax before heading out again. Around 9 p.m., her friend Karen Weiss arrived at her apartment. The two caught up, possibly shared a drink, and then ventured out into the night. Their first stop was Luca's, a popular restaurant in a historic brick building on Hanover Street. There, Laura danced and chatted with several men. The night wrapped up around 1 a.m., with Karen saying goodbye to Laura on the steps of her apartment building at 20 Chapel Street. Across Shafe Street, a 13-year-old boy, R.S., briefly noticed Laura through his living room window. She was sitting on her couch, her back to the window, possibly holding a snack. This observation would later be one of the last known sightings of Laura alive. The next morning, around 9:30 a.m., a grim scene unfolded at Laura's apartment. By mid-morning, crowds were held back by crime scene tape outside the Chapel Street apartment, where Officer Gravau had discovered Laura's body. William Mortimer, the lead investigator from the Portsmouth PD, arrived to take charge of the investigation. Laura's body was mostly covered by her bedding, mattress, and box spring, as if they had been piled up on top of her. Only her legs from the knees down were visible, bound at the ankles with a white cord, part of an electric blanket. A large pool of blood had soaked into the brown rug beneath her. The room bore clear signs of a violent struggle, with bloodstains on the wall, closets, and drawers ransacked, and Laura's personal belongings scattered. Once the bedding was removed, it was evident that Laura was nude, lying on her back. A gray telephone cord from the kitchen was wrapped around her neck, and a green pillowcase covered her head. Removing the pillowcase, Mortimer saw her badly beaten face. The medical examiner would later conclude that she had suffered punches to the face and a severe blunt force trauma to the left side of her head, which nearly caved in her skull. A wine bottle, likely the murder weapon, lay beside her, along with a cigarette butt, though Laura did not smoke. Mortimer also discovered a small black metal hook near Laura's body. He speculated that the killer had used it to pry out the molding around the door panel to gain entry into the apartment. Later that afternoon, Dr. Dennis Carlson, the Rockingham County medical examiner and a certified pathologist, conducted Laura's autopsy. He confirmed that she had died from massive head trauma and also noted signs of sexual assault. He collected various samples, which all revealed the presence of products from a man. Dr. Carlson estimated Laura's time of death to be between 1:30 a.m. and 3:30 a.m. Laura Kempton's death was not just a tragic loss for her loved ones, but it also shook the Portsmouth community. The brutal nature of the crime and the lack of immediate suspects casts a dark shadow over the city, known for its low crime rate and close-knit community. The investigation into her murder would span decades, becoming one of Portsmouth's most notorious and heartbreaking cold cases. The investigation into Laura Kempton's death was initiated with urgency and thoroughness. Detective Mortimer and his team launched into action, interviewing anyone who had crossed paths with Laura in the days leading up to her tragic end. They spoke with her friends, family, co-workers, and fellow students, piecing together a portrait of a cheerful, outgoing young woman who seemed unlikely to have enemies. A key figure in the investigation was J.R., the man Laura had been with the weekend before her death. J.R. confirmed their romantic involvement, noting they had been intimate both late Saturday night and early Sunday morning. This raised the possibility that his DNA might match the samples found on Laura's body. J.R. also recounted how Laura was particular about her safety, always ensuring her door was locked, even double-checking it the night they spent together. J.R. shared an intriguing detail. He had seen Laura stash a wad of cash in an envelope, presumably for bills or rent, on her kitchen table. However, detectives found no trace of this envelope or the money, suggesting it might have been taken by the murderer. The investigation also drew insights from Laura's neighbors. Across the street, R.S., a young boy who had always looked at Laura from his window, and his mother, had seen Laura in her apartment around 1:30 a.m. on Monday. Around an hour later, Daniel Fortier, a resident in Laura's building, returned home, He noticed the hallway light was off, a detail that would later raise suspicions. Approaching Laura's apartment, Fortier observed that a panel on her door was missing, and heard noises inside which he initially assumed were repairs after a break-in. Upon further examination, detectives discovered the hallway light bulb had been deliberately loosened. If Fortier's timing was accurate, the noises he heard were likely those of Laura's killer. This critical detail suggested that Laura's assailant had tampered with the light to work under the cover of darkness, increasing the mystery and urgency surrounding the case. Each piece of information, each witness account, added another layer to the puzzle. The investigators meticulously sifted through these details, trying to piece together the last hours of Laura's life and identify her killer. Yet despite their efforts, the case remained shrouded in uncertainty, with more questions than answers. The quest for justice in Laura Kempton's case would extend far beyond the initial investigation, becoming a haunting and unresolved mystery in the heart of Portsmouth. Nearly 2 decades after Laura Kempton's tragic murder, in July 2000, the case saw a renewed push for answers. Detectives eager to utilize advancements in forensic science submitted 2 DNA samples for testing at Cellmark Diagnostics in Maryland. These samples included a scraping from Laura's thigh and a swab from the gray telephone wire found around her neck. In August, the lab reported back with mixed results. While they couldn't develop a DNA profile from the telephone wire, they successfully obtained a partial male DNA profile from the thigh scraping. 2 years later, in 2002, the Portsmouth PD decided to test additional evidence at the Maine State Crime Lab. This time, they focused on the genital swabs and the cigarette butt found near Laura's body. Forensic analyst Kathy McMillan managed to develop 2 distinct DNA profiles from the genital swab, one belonging to Laura, and the other to an unidentified male. Intriguingly, the partial male profile from the cigarette butt matched the unknown male profile from the genital swab. Further comparison with the Cellmark results showed that the partial profile from the thigh scraping was consistent with the full profile obtained from the genital swabs. One of the first individuals the Portsmouth PD tested was J.R., Laura's last known sexual partner. To their surprise, his DNA did not match any of the profiles found on Laura's body. Despite their intimacy early on September 27th, none of J.R.'s DNA was present in the samples. The following years saw a determined effort by investigators to find a match for the DNA profiles. They systematically collected and compared DNA samples from hundreds of individuals, painstakingly working to eliminate each person of interest. This exhaustive process, spanning over a decade, reflected the dedication of the Portsmouth PD to solving this long-standing mystery. Yet even with modern forensic technology at their disposal, the identity of Laura's killer remained elusive, leaving the case open and the search for justice ongoing. The case then went cold once again. In September 2021, the Portsmouth Police Department, alongside the New Hampshire State Crime Lab and Attorney General's Office, convened to discuss the potential of employing genetic genealogy in their cold case investigations. They decided to revisit Laura Kempton's case, with the help of Identifinders International, a team of genetic genealogists. The genital swab samples from Laura's case were sent for a fresh round of analysis. Fast forward to May of 2022. The lead investigator on the case received significant news. The unknown male's DNA profile, extracted from the swab samples, had been successfully developed and uploaded to GEDmatch, a public genetic genealogy database. This was a critical breakthrough in the decades-long investigation. Within just 3 days, the investigator was informed of a match to a close relative in the database. Linda Doyle, a skilled genetic genealogist, rapidly deduced that the unknown male was the offspring of 2 specific individuals. With diligent investigative work, it was established that these 2 individuals had only one biological child. This child, tragically, turned out to be the perpetrator the Portsmouth PD had been tirelessly searching for. However, the lead detective soon learned that the individual, now identified as Ronnie James Lee, had passed away nearly 20 years earlier. This discovery initially seemed like a disappointing setback. But in a fortunate turn of events, the office of the medical examiner still possessed a blood card from his autopsy. The Maine State Crime Lab compared the DNA on this blood card to the DNA from Laura's vaginal swab. The results were conclusive. A perfect match. This pivotal moment brought a name to the once faceless perpetrator, closing a chapter on the haunting mystery that had lingered for over 40 years. While the suspect had eluded justice in life, the identification of Ronnie James Lee brought a semblance of closure to a case that had long troubled the Portsmouth community and haunted the memories of Laura Kempton's loved ones. Ronnie James Lee, born in Fort Myers, Florida on January 16, 1960, was the third of 6 children to Charlie James Lee and Janie Mae. His early life, marred by his parents' divorce, remained largely unchronicled. Ronnie, during his late teens in the late 1970s, enlisted in the Army, serving until May 15, 1981. Post-discharge, he lived with his mother in Portsmouth's North End, a mere 8-minute drive to where Laura Kempton resided. By June 1981, Ronnie had begun working as a security guard for Liberty Mutual in Portsmouth, employed through MBI Security. This was around the time Laura moved to her apartment on Chapel Street. Ronnie's criminal activities escalated from there. In September 1981, he broke into Laura's apartment and committed the murder that would haunt Portsmouth for decades. Ronnie's more frequent run-ins with law enforcement started in November of 1982 with an attempted burglary. The following summer saw him embark on a burglary spree, breaking into 4 residences and commercial buildings. His method of entry, breaking a window pane to unlock the door, eerily mirrored the technique used in Laura's apartment. Ronnie was also linked to the murder of another beauty school student, Tammy Little, in her apartment, a case that remains unresolved. In 1987, Ronnie was convicted of a burglary and sexual assault in Keene, New Hampshire. He broke into a house and assaulted a young woman, fleeing when she screamed. He was caught, convicted, and served 3 years in prison, from 1987 to 1990 for this crime. Ronnie's life ended in 2005 at the age of 45, due to a cocaine overdose. He left behind a son, step-siblings, and a legacy of crimes that went undetected until years after his death. His actions, particularly the murder of Laura Kempton, left an indelible mark on the Portsmouth community, a reminder of the lurking dangers and the long, winding road to justice. In the warm July afternoon of this year, a significant announcement was made at the State Police Communications Center in Concord, New Hampshire. Gathered in the room were reporters and law enforcement officials, including Portsmouth Chief of Police Mark Newport. New Hampshire Attorney General John Formella took to the podium to finally bring closure to a case that had lingered for over 4 decades, the 1981 homicide of Laura Kempton. For the first time, Ronnie James Lee was publicly named as the perpetrator of this heinous crime. The Attorney General detailed how Ronnie had broken into Laura's apartment with intentions most foul, involving robbery and possibly sexual assault. He emphasized that had Rodney been alive, he would have faced charges of first-degree murder and other serious offenses. Sadly, Justice's arrival was belated, and Ronnie had passed away years before. Among those who had tirelessly pursued justice was Police Commissioner William Mortimer, the initial lead detective on the case. Although he passed away in 2019, his legacy and belief in the advancements of forensic science played a pivotal role in solving the case. The Kempton family, in a heartfelt statement, expressed their profound gratitude to the Portsmouth Police Department. They specifically acknowledged retired Captain John Parachi and his team for their unwavering commitment to Laura's case. The family extended their thanks to all who had worked on the case over the years, and requested privacy as they processed the long-awaited closure. What do you think about the long journey to solve Laura Kempton's case? Which other approach do you feel could have been taken in knowing the perpetrator earlier enough? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. If there's a case you'd like us to cover, don't hesitate to share your suggestions in the comment section below. For more captivating true crime stories, like, share, and subscribe to our channel.
Bardstown, Kentucky, mother of 5, Crystal Rogers, disappeared in 2015. She has never been found, but her boyfriend, Brooks Hauk, has been arrested along with a second man, Joseph Lawson. And tonight, a third arrest, Joseph Lawson's father. We have the details.
During the 4th of July weekend in 2015, Crystal Rogers, a 35-year-old mother of 5, inexplicably disappeared without a trace, leaving her abandoned car on the Bluegrass Parkway in Bardstown, Kentucky. Crystal's parents, Sherry and Tommy Ballard, were left shattered and bewildered. After the disappearance, Sherry cared for Crystal's kids while Tommy dedicated himself to finding his daughter.
Nearly every day, Crystal's father, Tommy Ballard, searches for his daughter.
Police also investigated, but no clues were to be found of her whereabouts. Tragedy struck again 16 months later, when on November 19, 2016, her father Tommy was shot and killed while he was hunting on family property near Bluegrass Parkway. The mysterious disappearance of Rogers and the subsequent death of her father deeply impacted the Kentucky community, garnering widespread media attention. Despite the extensive coverage, investigators struggled to make progress. It wasn't until this year, after 8 agonizing years, that a major breakthrough occurred. As we dig deep into the case, what happened to Rogers? Did she run away, or was she abducted? Who was responsible for her father's death? Are the Crystal Rogers and Tommy Ballard murders linked to other unsolved murders in Bardstown? There are lots of mysteries surrounding this case. Let's unfold them one by one. This case takes us to Bardstown, Kentucky, known for its vibrant community spirit, rich history, and local legends. Including the famed bourbon heritage, it offers a world-class experience in a small-town setting. However, in terms of safety, Bardstown doesn't rank among the safest communities in America. Compared to the rest of Kentucky, its crime rate is higher than 90% of cities and towns of all sizes in the state. Part of the reason is also that the town has witnessed 4 unimaginable unsolved tragedies that have scarred the lives of those who live in this town forever. The first tragedy was on Memorial Day weekend of 2013 when Bardstown police officer Jason Ellis, age 33, was ambushed and fatally shot on the Bluegrass Parkway exit ramp.
Police in Kentucky say an officer was ambushed and murdered this weekend. They are looking for help in finding his killer. 33-year-old Jason Ellis spent 7 years on the Bardstown, Kentucky police force. He was interviewed in January by our Louisville affiliate, WLKY. Officials say Ellis was clearing trash from a highway when someone opened fire several times with a shotgun. Bardstown's police chief says he would like to see the attacker, quote, on the front side of one of our weapons.
The second one was on the day after Easter in 2014, when 48-year-old Kathy Netherland and her 16-year-old daughter Samantha were inhumanely murdered inside their home in Botland, just outside Bardstown. The third incident in this ghastly series of murders was that of Crystal Rogers. Crystal was born on April 4, 1980, in Bardstown, Kentucky. She was the cherished firstborn of Sherry and Tommy Ballard. Growing up in a close-knit family, Crystal was adored and protected by her parents, who were selective about the company she kept. As a child, Crystal exhibited a warm and compassionate nature, qualities that endeared her to those around her. Sherry expressed deep gratitude for having Crystal as a daughter, emphasizing that she couldn't have asked for a better child. Crystal Rogers had initially been married to a man named Keith Rogers, and together they had 4 kids. However, as time went on, the strains in their marriage became evident. Instead of opting for a formal divorce, Crystal and Keith decided to separate. Interestingly, Crystal retained his last name, even as they grew apart. Later in life, Crystal became a fully devoted mother to her 4 children, embracing the joys and responsibilities that came with motherhood. Shortly after the separation, Crystal entered into a new chapter in her life by dating a local man named Brooks Houck. This relationship extended for several years, leading into 2015. Crystal and Brooks not only shared a romantic connection, but also had a professional one. Brooks, hailing from a well-off family with ties to Bardstown, owned and managed multiple rental properties in the region. Crystal actively worked alongside him, balancing her responsibilities at work with the task of raising her 4 kids. With Brooks, Crystal also welcomed a new addition to her family, a son named Elijah, affectionately known as Eli. However, Crystal's life, characterized by her kindness and maternal devotion, was about to take a tragic turn. Her sudden disappearance left her 5 children with a permanent void in their hearts, forever missing the enriching presence of their mother.
I feel like she was just here yesterday, but at the same time, I feel like I haven't seen her in a long time. I just feel like a big hole has been left in my heart where she should be.
July 3, 2015 started as just another ordinary day for Crystal, who was spending time at her boyfriend Brooks's family farm. She spent the time playing games on her phone while also keeping an eye on her kids. Little did anyone know that this seemingly regular day would change the lives of everyone involved. The next morning, July 4th, Brooks woke up to an unsettling discovery. Crystal was gone. The 4th of July rolled by with barbecues, fireworks, and the usual celebrations, but nobody heard from Crystal throughout the whole day. 2 days later, on July 5th, a relative stumbled upon Crystal's 2007 Chevrolet Impala, parked with a flat tire near mile marker 14 of the Bluegrass Parkway. Oddly, the keys were still in the ignition, and her purse and cell phone were found inside. It was at this point that Crystal's mother, Sherry Ballard, officially reported her daughter as missing. The investigation into the disappearance of Crystal Rogers began on July 5, 2015, led by Detective John Snow. Brooks Houck, Crystal's boyfriend and father of her youngest child, immediately became the focus of the investigation. Brooks claimed that on the night of July 3rd, he, Crystal, and their son Eli visited the family farm. They returned home and went to bed, and when Brooks woke up the next morning, Crystal was gone. He suggested that her habit of leaving in the middle of the night was not uncommon, often to attend parties.
So you go to bed, she stays up. What's she doing?
She's just on her phone playing. I don't know what game, but she normally plays a game.
Right.
Some kind. She's got several of them on there, but I don't know which one.
Do you know what time Eli came to bed, or she put him into bed?
I don't know.
And so when you wake up, he's there, but Crystal's not.
She's not.
However, Crystal's friends and family disputed Brooks's attempted portrayal of her as a frequent partygoer who would leave her children behind. Brooks's uncooperative attitude during the search raised suspicions. When questions about text messages indicating Crystal's plans for July 3rd without the children, Brooks responded with, "I don't know." Despite Crystal being officially reported missing on July 5th, Brooks seemed apathetic and did little to help in the 2 days leading up to the discovery of her vehicle alongside the Bluegrass Parkway. On July 8th, Brooks was interviewed by Detective Snow, in which he was seen downplaying most aspects and portraying himself as a victim. The interview ended abruptly with a call from his brother, Nick Houck, a Bardstown police officer. This added another layer to the investigation.
I'm up here. I know that you didn't know. I'm up here in this interview with the Detective Snow. I've been up here a good little while. I'm filling out this statement here and everything. Are you telling me that's what I need to do? I'm not. I know that. But the way that I look at it is, I'm innocent. I ain't done nothing wrong.
Both brothers were now under the police's suspicion. The brothers met at the family farm, Crystal's last known location, on July 8th. Nick was interviewed and investigated, but he refused to cooperate. "I have nothing to tell you."
What's he said?
I don't know that he said much of anything. Obviously I'm not really gonna bring it up to him because I know him well. I know he's a good guy and that he wouldn't have anything to do with something like this. So, I'm not gonna sit there and question him about it, I just feel like I know for sure that he had nothing to do with her disappearance or whatever. And
Nick also declined to take a polygraph test initially. However, when compelled to undergo the test on July 24th, the results raised serious concerns. Whenever questioned about Crystal Rogers or the events surrounding her disappearance, his responses indicated deception. Months passed, with no new leads despite extensive search efforts. On September 9th, 2015, Nick was suspended by Bardstown Police Chief Rick McCubbin for non-cooperation. On October 16th, he was fired. The investigation remained stagnant, leaving Crystal's whereabouts unknown. In the end, the case seemed trapped in uncertainty. Despite suspicions surrounding Brooks and Nick Houck, no concrete evidence emerged, and Crystal Rogers remained missing, leaving her family and friends in distress with the case seemingly going nowhere. Tommy and Sherry Ballard faced immense difficulty coping with their daughter's disappearance. Acting as guardians for 3 of Crystal's 5 children, they endeavored to provide a sense of normalcy for the kids, while also raising awareness about Crystal's case. Sherry frequently spoke to the media about the situation, while her father Tommy took a more hands-on approach. Tommy took an active role in organizing searches, seeking information from the sheriff's office, and conducting interviews. It was almost like he was running his own investigation, alongside official efforts to find his daughter. When progress seemed to slow, he even considered running for the sheriff's post. His aim was to lead the department responsible for investigating his daughter's case, and hopefully bring about more visible results. Almost immediately after Crystal went missing, the Ballard family harbored suspicions of foul play involving Brooks and his brother. Early on, they publicly insinuated Brooks's guilt, challenging the credibility of his relationship with Crystal. In the latter half of 2015, Tommy and Sherry escalated their legal actions against Brooks, particularly concerning Eli, Crystal and Brooks's 3-year-old son. Fearing Brooks might attempt to leave the region with Eli, giving his rapid sale of real estate at unusually low prices, the Ballards took legal steps to prevent his potential departure. Apart from this legal battle, Tommy was persistently searching for his daughter. In doing so, he appeared to become somewhat paranoid. In 2016 especially, he became a strong advocate for safety, urging family members to install security cameras at home and carry firearms regularly. Reflecting on it now, it's clear that Tommy was deeply affected by the second major loss in his life. First, his sister's murder in 1979, and now his daughter's disappearance almost 40 years later. Tommy also told his wife Sherry that he felt as if he was being followed. Those close to Tommy sensed his fear of something untoward happening to him or his loved ones, particularly as the holiday season approached. As 2015 drew to a close, the Ballards filed a legal motion to ensure Brooks stayed in the area. Additionally, they initiated a legal battle for custody of Elijah, a process that would extend over the following years. On October 16, 2015, Nelson County Sheriff Ed Mattingly officially declared Crystal Rogers as likely dead. He pointed to her boyfriend, Brooks Houck, as the primary suspect in her disappearance. In December 2015, the first arrest related to Crystal Rogers' disappearance was announced. Danny Singleton, a longtime employee and considered the right-hand man of Brooks Houck, was taken into custody. Singleton, known to be friendly with Crystal, had worked alongside her. On December 16, 2015, 53-year-old Singleton was arrested on 38 counts of perjury, stemming from his grand jury testimony earlier that year. Detectives alleged that he had repeatedly lied under oath, and he faced the prospect of a lengthy prison sentence if found guilty. However, he spent only 8 months in jail and was then released. In 2016, the focus of the Crystal Rogers investigation intensified on Brooks Houck, the main suspect. Detectives, having already broadened their inquiry to include his brother Nick, now turned their attention to other family members. A white Buick, previously owned by their grandmother, Anna Whitesides, drew attention. Nick had sold it around the time of Crystal's disappearance, prompting investigators to tow it to a Kentucky State Police lab for forensic testing. The goal was to find any evidence linked to Crystal, like DNA or suspicious bodily fluids. This brought 82-year-old Anna Whitesides into the investigation spotlight. She was summoned to testify before a grand jury in June of 2016. The court suspected the vehicle might have been used to dispose of a body, cleaned afterwards, and sold to hinder the investigation. However, Whitesides refused to testify, invoking her Fifth Amendment right. Despite avoiding the grand jury, her property faced scrutiny in August of 2016. A search warrant was executed at Nick Houck's home, and subsequent searches were targeted at the farm of Rosemary Houck, Brooks's mother. Detective John Snow announced the extensive search involving over 36 officials and 18 cadaver dogs across 245 acres. Despite the substantial effort and collaboration with various law enforcement agencies, including the FBI, the searches yielded no conclusive evidence related to Crystal. The investigation continued while another tragedy was lurking just around the corner for the Ballard family. Tommy Ballard, Crystal's father, met a fateful end on November 19, 2016. The incident occurred at 8 a.m. during a hunting excursion with his son and 12-year-old grandson on the family's property near the Bluegrass Parkway along Ed Brent Lane. Initially labeled as a hunting accident by the police, Sherry Ballard, Tommy's wife, consistently asserted that it was not accidental. She believed her husband had been murdered. Tommy's father, Till Ballard, revealed Tommy's unwavering commitment to finding Crystal, saying, "Tommy always said, 'I'll spend my last dime trying to find Crystal.' I guess he's found her now." An autopsy in Louisville confirmed that Tommy Ballard was shot in the chest, with the bullet exiting his back. Till Ballard also mentioned that his son had plans for a large-scale out-of-town search in the coming week. When questioned about a potential connection between Crystal Rogers' disappearance and Tommy Ballard's death, Police Detective Trooper Gregory emphasized it was way too early to draw such conclusions. The investigation into Tommy's shooting then began, with Trooper Gregory urging support and prayers for the grieving family, who had already endured so much. Sherry Ballard, Crystal's mother, continued her legal battle for custody of Eli. In February of 2019, a Nelson County Circuit Judge ruled that Sherry couldn't visit Eli until the custody matter was resolved. Speaking to Dateline reporters, Sherry stated, "Deep in my heart, I know that Crystal's not coming home, but it's very hard to accept. So now we are doing anything we can to get answers." Crystal's sister, Brooke Ballard, told those same Dateline reporters, "People say that it'll get better, but it hasn't. She was my best friend, and she's not here anymore." The investigation was still going nowhere, but the Ballard family was hopeful that they would find answers soon enough. In August 2020, the FBI intervened in the Crystal Rogers case. They conducted searches at Brooks and Nick's homes, Crystal's storage unit, and the Houck family farm. A subsequent search on August 27, 2021, in the Woodlawn Springs subdivision where Brooks Houck's construction company built houses post Crystal's disappearance led to the recovery of an item of interest from under a driveway. The FBI urged individuals in Bardstown with information to come forward. The investigation continued with another multi-day search of the Houck family farm in October of 2022, culminating in evidence sent to the FBI's lab in Quantico for analysis. The FBI's involvement underscored the persistent effort to uncover the truth in a case that had left Crystal's family grappling with uncertainty and seeking answers.
What was your initial reaction when the FBI announced on Thursday that they would be taking over the lead on this investigation?
Relief. I've known for a little while that they were involved. I just couldn't talk about it due to the case. So for them to come out public.
On June 21, 2023, authorities took another significant step in the investigation of Crystal Rogers' disappearance by charging a previously undisclosed person. This development added a new layer to the long-standing case, which had initially spotlighted Brooks Houck as a suspect in Rogers' disappearance. The arrest also prompted scrutiny of a 2015 police interview with Brooks Houck, where a mention of another individual named Steve Lawson surfaced.
Okay, who is Steve Lawson? He's somebody that works for me.
Adding a layer of intrigue to the ongoing investigation. There are unconfirmed reports of Steve Lawson having a son named Joseph Lawson, and hence the possible connection. Joseph Lawson, a 32-year-old individual, faced charges of conspiracy to commit murder and complicity to tampering with physical evidence, as indicated by court records. The charges against Lawson, stemming from an incident during the 4th of July weekend in 2015, coincided with the time when Rogers was reported missing. This crucial period also aligns with the discovery of Rogers' belongings, including her keys, phone, and purse inside her car on the Bluegrass Parkway. Lawson's indictment specifically accused him of involvement in destroying, mutilating, concealing, or removing physical evidence. The arrest of Joseph Lawson sparked questions about the events surrounding Crystal Rogers' disappearance and the nature of the connection between Lawson and the missing woman. Despite Lawson's arrest, the specifics of what transpired on the night of Rogers' disappearance remain undisclosed, leaving gaps in the narrative. On September 27, 2023, federal agents finally apprehended Brooks William Houck. The arrest, based on a one-page indictment, included charges of murder and tampering with physical evidence in connection to the July 2015 death of Crystal Rogers. The unsealed indictment, revealed by a circuit court judge on Wednesday, specified that Brooks stood accused of killing Rogers on either July 3rd or July 4th, 2015. However, crucial details surrounding the circumstances of her death, such as the method and location, remain absent from the document. Similarly, the indictment did not provide insight into how Houck allegedly tampered with evidence related to the case. Timothy Beam, a spokesperson for the Federal Bureau of Investigation based in Louisville, confirmed that Brooks was taken into custody on Wednesday morning in Bardstown. The arrest, carried out without incident, occurred at a work site, according to the FBI. Following his apprehension, Brooks was confined to the Nelson County Jail on a substantial $10 million cash bond.
As he got out of the car, I asked, "Where is Crystal Rogers?" He didn't say anything as he entered the back of the jail. The Nelson County jailer was also on hand. Let's take a look at some of the video as he went in. You can see that clearly as this unmarked car goes through the gate.
A judge also issued an order preventing him from having any contact with the family of Crystal. On October 5th, Brooks faced his first arraignment in Bardstown since his arrest on September 27th, where he was formally charged with the death of Crystal. During the hearing, Special Prosecutor Shane Young stated that they were in possession of the gun used to kill Tommy Ballard, which was purchased from Nick Houck. He also indicated a connection between both homicides. Houck's attorneys, on the other hand, requested a reduction in his substantial $10 million bond, proposing it be lowered to $500,000 with GPS monitoring. However, the Nelson County judge ruled to maintain the original bond amount as Brooks awaited trial for the murder of Crystal. Simultaneously, a separate legal battle unfolded concerning the custody of Elijah, with both of his grandmothers, Rosemary Houck and Sherry Ballard, vying for custody in court. However, since Brooks Houck's arrest, Rosemary Houck has withdrawn her custody request.
Through the years, Ballard fought for custody and visitation, and in February of 2021, she was denied the right to see her grandson, with the judge ruling there is clear and convincing evidence significant hostility exists between the Ballard family and Houck, such that it poses a significant risk of emotional harm to the child. But Ballard never gave up hope Brooks Houck would be charged with her daughter's murder, and that she would once again see her grandson.
Crystal's 5 children, Sherry Ballard, and family expressed their joy upon the arrest. Talking to social media, Ballard conveyed, "To say today was overwhelming would be an understatement. I have waited 8 long, gruesome years for this day. To see Brooks Houck put in handcuffs was surreal for me. I've always known he was guilty. Now everyone will know that. I don't really even know the emotions I have felt today." Bardstown residents also shared their sentiments on the arrest of the Crystal Rogers case. One of her elder kids says in a video that, "I just feel like a big hole has been left in my heart where she should be."
I just feel like a big hole has been left in my heart where she should be.
Taylor Beavers, a resident, conveyed empathy, stating, "I hope her family's doing fine and they get some closure. Her friends, everybody that was kind to her community around her, I hope they're all doing good today. I feel like making this arrest is a step in a direction towards healing." Mackenzie Taylor, another resident, expressed a sense of frustration, commenting, I feel like they've known who it was for a long time. They know who did it. They should have made an arrest that day," echoing a sentiment shared by Bardstown resident Beverly Biven. The arrest of Brooks Houck clearly stirred a range of emotions among those closely connected to the case and the Bardstown community at large. The investigation into the disappearance of Crystal Rogers had a profound impact not just on the local community, but on the entire state of Kentucky. Over the years, the case gripped the region, marked by numerous interviews, extensive searches, and significant announcements. After 8 years of enduring excruciating uncertainty, it appears that the case may have finally found closure. Now, let's hear what you make of this case. Why do you think Brooks Houck wasn't arrested after being identified as a main suspect in this case? Do you believe that there is a potential to establish a link between Brooks Houck and the death of Tommy Ballard, given the complexities surrounding both cases? We value your thoughts and opinions. If there are other cases you'd like us to explore, or if you have suggestions for our next story, please share them in the comments below. Your input plays a crucial role in shaping the stories we bring to you. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more such stories.
It comes more than 30 years after a 6-year-old boy was sexually assaulted and killed in Vallejo.
On February 21, 1987, tragedy struck the peaceful city of Vallejo in California when 6-year-old Jeremy Floyd Stoner went missing while playing on the street with his brothers. A frantic 4-day search effort across Solano County, California came to a devastating end when Jeremy's lifeless body was discovered on February 25, 1987, on Sherman Island in Sacramento County. Shockingly, police reports revealed that Jeremy had been assaulted and inhumanely slain. After decades of unanswered questions, the cold case was finally cracked in 2023. How did this horrifying crime go unsolved for so long? And what finally led to its resolution? Vallejo, California, a city in Solano County and the second largest in the North Bay region, is known for its diverse lifestyle. Home to 126,090 people, as of the 2020 census, Vallejo boasts notable institutions like the California Maritime Academy, Touro University, California, and Six Flags Discovery Kingdom. Its proximity to San Pablo Bay adds to its charm, offering a mix of recreational and historic sites that shape the living experience there. Despite its many attractions, Vallejo has faced challenges with crime, like many urban areas. Recently, the Jeremy Stoner cold case, finally solved in 2023, has brought renewed attention to the city's ongoing efforts to manage crime. Jeremy Floyd Stoner, born to John and Karen Stoner on March 3, 1980, was a beacon of joy in the Vallejo community. Growing up in a loving household, he was the third of 4 boys. His older brothers, Jason and Joshua, and his younger brother, Justin, were his constant companions in their family home. At the tender age of 6, Jeremy's world was full of simple pleasures and childhood wonder. He was known for his bright smile and big heart, traits that endeared him to everyone he met. Life for Jeremy was a tapestry of everyday joys. He relished going to school, where his curiosity and eagerness to learn shone brightly. After school, he would often be seen riding his bike, a whirl of energy and laughter. His playtime was filled with imagination and fun, as he enjoyed his toys and loved watching cartoons, each episode bringing him new delights and adventures. The Stoner household was a hub of activity and warmth, with Jeremy's playful nature bringing light and happiness. His relationships with his brothers were typical of siblings, marked by camaraderie and the occasional squabble, but always underscored by a deep familial bond. Jeremy's presence was a constant reminder of the innocence and joy of childhood, making his untimely passing all the more heart-wrenching for those who knew and loved him. On that fateful Saturday morning, February 21, 1987, the Stoner family's routine took a tragic turn. 6-year-old Jeremy was playing outside with his older brothers, Jason and Joshua, who were 9 and 11 years old, respectively. Their day started like any other, with the boys engaged in their usual outdoor activities near their home in Vallejo. Their parents were at work, and a relative who was keeping an eye on them had to suddenly leave to attend to her sick daughter. Before leaving, she instructed the boys to stay home until their parents returned. However, the boys, being typical adventurous youngsters, decided to visit a neighbor's house instead. At the neighbor's house, an incident occurred that would later be recalled with painful clarity. Jeremy, in a moment of childlike clumsiness, accidentally spilled some ketchup. He was scolded by the neighbor, a detail that would stick in the minds of those piecing together the timeline of that day. The boys left the neighbor's house shortly after that incident. Jeremy's mother returned home around 4 p.m., expecting to find her sons at home or at a neighbor's, as was often the case. But to her growing concern, the house was empty. When Jason and Joshua returned without Jeremy 2 hours later, panic set in. Jeremy's mother, her heart racing with fear, initiated a search, calling out for Jeremy in the neighborhood, hoping he was nearby, playing hide-and-seek or had lost track of time. With Jeremy nowhere to be found, the family's concern escalated rapidly. The Vallejo police were contacted, and the quiet evening turned into a frantic search. Officers and community members combed the area, looking for any sign of the young boy. The police quickly surmised that Jeremy had been kidnapped, as there was no trace of him in the vicinity. This realization sent shockwaves through the community. Neighbors and friends joined in the search, spreading out across the neighborhood, calling Jeremy's name and checking every possible hiding spot a child might find. The family's immediate reaction was a mixture of disbelief, fear, and determination. Every minute was crucial, and the community's effort to find Jeremy reflected the urgency of the situation. The Stoner family, grappling with a parent's worst nightmare, hoped against hope for Jeremy's safe return. As the sun set and the hours passed, the reality of the situation became increasingly grim. The search for Jeremy would continue, but the joyful, carefree Saturday morning had been irreversibly marred by a tragedy that would haunt the family and the Vallejo community for years to come. The last confirmed sighting of Jeremy was at a local Dairy Queen on Springs Road in Vallejo, a mere 5-minute walk from his family home. It was there that a worker reported seeing the young boy with an unidentified adult man around 7:30 in the evening. This piece of information, though critical, did little to ease the growing unease and fear gripping the Vallejo community. 4 harrowing days after Jeremy's disappearance, on February 25, 1987, a grim discovery was made on Sherman Island in Sacramento County, which was about 40 miles away from his home in Vallejo. This day brought the search for Jeremy to a tragic end. 4 individuals, while driving down Sherman Island Road, found themselves in an unexpected situation when their vehicle got stuck in the mud. In an effort to free their vehicle, one of the drivers stepped out to find something to wedge under the tires. It was during this search that they stumbled upon a horrifying scene: the body of a little boy. The authorities were immediately called to the scene. Upon their arrival, it became heartbreakingly clear that the body was that of Jeremy Stoner. The details of his condition were disturbing. He had been assaulted, stabbed, and strangled. The police quickly cordoned off the area and began their meticulous process of collecting evidence. Every piece of evidence, including genetic material from Jeremy's remains, was carefully documented and preserved, in the hope that it would eventually lead to the perpetrator of this heinous crime. The news of Jeremy's demise spread rapidly throughout Vallejo, sending shockwaves of grief and outrage through the community. The residents who had joined hands in the search for Jeremy now came together in shared sorrow. They expressed their condolences to the Stoner family, offering flowers, cards, and hugs. The community's involvement didn't stop there. They held a candlelight vigil in Jeremy's memory, and prayers were offered for the bereaved family. Mayor Terry Curtola of Vallejo at the time remarked on the profound impact Jeremy's case had on the community. He noted how the people of Vallejo had become an extended part of the Stoner family during those 4 days of search. The community had searched, cried, and prayed together, hoping against hope for a positive outcome. But the tragic discovery shattered those hopes, leaving a lasting scar on the community's heart. In an unexpected turn of events not long after Jeremy's body was found, a suspect walked into the Vallejo Police Department, potentially bringing the case a step closer to resolution. In the wake of the tragic discovery of Jeremy Stoner's body, Vallejo police intensified their efforts to solve the case. They offered a $5,000 reward for information leading to the arrest of the person responsible for the 6-year-old's death. This move signaled their commitment to bringing justice to Jeremy and his family. On March 1, 1987, about a week after the heartbreaking loss of Jeremy, an unemployed security guard named Sean Quincy Melton approached the police, claiming to have information about the case. Melton, who expressed a desire to impress detectives with his amateur investigation skills, sought to portray himself as a knowledgeable individual, eager to help. However, his initial swagger during the interrogation soon gave way to confusion as he became a suspect in the crime. Melton had a troubled past and a disturbing mindset, evidenced by a book he authored titled The Wolf's Den, which depicted the exploitation of young people. While he claimed it was purely fictional, some questioned whether it was completely detached from his personal experiences. His voluntary visit to the police station, where he indicated he had heard rumors and witnessed events relevant to the case, aroused suspicions. The police's skepticism about Melton was not unfounded. Prior to his visit, a psychologist had alerted the authorities, revealing that Melton confessed to having disturbed fantasies involving young boys. This revelation heightened concerns about his potential involvement in Jeremy's case. Consequently, the police subjected Melton to an extensive 30-hour interrogation, which included numerous questions and a polygraph test. The police also created a sketch of Melton, comparing it to a witness's description of the abductor. Their goal was to gather as much information as possible to ascertain his involvement in Jeremy's disappearance and death. Despite their efforts, Melton steadfastly denied any involvement, maintaining his innocence and insisting that his only intention was to assist the police. He passed the polygraph test, and the sketch did not match the witness's description. The police, however, persisted in their investigation of Melton, proposing a new theory. They speculated that Melton might suffer from multiple personality disorder, suggesting that one of his alter egos, named John Wolfe, could have perpetrated the crime. They hypothesized that Melton had no recollection of these actions. Following these developments, the authorities arrested Sean Melton, charging him with kidnapping and taking Jeremy's life. However, the evidence against him was insufficient to secure a conviction. 2 trials were conducted, but in both instances, the juries were unable to reach a unanimous verdict. As a result, the judge had no choice but to dismiss the case. Sean Milton passed away in 2000, never admitting any involvement in Jeremy Stoner's fate. The case remained unsolved for many years, classified as a cold case due to the absence of fresh leads or new evidence. In 2023, 2 decades after the heart-wrenching incident, Jeremy Stoner's cold case witnessed a monumental breakthrough. The Vallejo police received a new lead, one that hinged on the advancements in DNA technology. DNA, the unique genetic code found in every individual, has become an invaluable tool in criminal investigations, offering a precise way to identify a person or establish their familial connections. Leveraging this advanced DNA testing technology, the police compared genetic material obtained from Jeremy's remains with samples stored in a criminal database. This approach was a long shot, but it held the potential to unravel the mystery that had lingered for over 20 years. The persistence and dedication of the investigators paid off. They found a match. The breakthrough in DNA analysis led them to identify the perpetrator, Fred Marion Kane III. Fred Marion Kane III, born on December 1, 1953, is now known as the perpetrator in the Jeremy Stoner case. While much about his early life, including details about his parents in childhood, remains obscured, his criminal history reveals a troubling pattern. In 1984, at the age of 30, Kane was suspected of assaulting a 17-year-old in San Bernardino County. The incident, which involved Kane and his roommate allegedly attacking the teenager at knife point, led to his arrest. He was charged with forcible assault and the use of a weapon, with enhancements due to 4 previous prison terms. However, Kane was found not guilty by a jury later that year. Kane's arrest in connection with Jeremy Stoner's case has cast a new light on his past actions. It has also drawn attention to other unsolved cases in the area, including the tragic case of 9-year-old Eric Coy, who was murdered in January of 1987, just a month before Jeremy's disappearance. Eric's case, like Jeremy's, remains a painful, unsolved chapter in the community's history. Currently 69 years old and residing in Central Point, Oregon, Kane's past is marked by crime and suspicion. On September 18, 2023, Fred Marion Kane was arrested for the unsolved murders of Jeremy Stoner and Eric Coy.
Now this week, investigators arresting Fred Kane III at his home in Central Point, Oregon. He'll be transferred to Solano County to face a murder charge. He's also accused of kidnapping and sodomy.
The arrest of Kane brought a mixture of emotions for those closely involved in the case, particularly for the Stoner family who had waited decades for a breakthrough. District Attorney Krishna Abrams, commenting on the arrest, expressed gratitude for the unwavering dedication of the cold case investigators. She highlighted the relentless effort and commitment of her team, emphasizing that no matter the passage of time, their resolve to solve these harrowing cases remained strong. Kane made his first court appearance in Solano County on September 28, 2023. This court session was a poignant moment, especially for Jeremy Stoner's family, who had endured years of uncertainty and grief. Jeremy's mother, Karen Tabler, was present in the courtroom as Kane was brought in. Her emotions reflected the complexity of the moment, a blend of relief and discomfort. She confessed, saying,
"Yeah, it's not feeling good, that's for sure. Hard to be in that same room." Yeah.
The long-standing Jeremy Stoner case finally reached a form of closure for his family. Paul Sakira, the Chief Deputy District Attorney of Solano County, reflected on the nature of such a resolution. He acknowledged, saying,
Well, I don't think you ever really get closure. I've been around a long time, haven't ever seen families get true closure, but I feel like it'll be some comfort that someone will be held responsible.
The arrest and trial of Fred Marion Kane III provided a semblance of comfort, knowing that the person responsible for Jeremy's untimely and tragic end was being held accountable. While it might not bring complete closure, it offered a measure of justice, something that the Stoner family had been seeking for decades. The community, which had stood by the family throughout the ordeal, also found some solace in this outcome. What are your thoughts on how this case unfolded over the years? Do you think there are lessons to be learned from the investigation and its outcome?
I'm the Public Information Officer for San Mateo Police Department. You're here today to hear about a cold case on a grisly home invasion and attempted murder of a woman who was in her San Mateo home back in 1989.
On February 4th, 1989, at approximately 4:15 a.m., an intruder allegedly entered an apartment on the 3100 block of Casa del Campo, San Mateo County, California. The intruder, wielding a kitchen knife he found in the apartment and concealing his identity with a bandana, forced his way into a woman's bed. Through threats and violence, he subjected her to a horrific ordeal, combining assault, strangulation, and stabbing. Remarkably, the victim persuaded the assailant to leave and promptly alerted the authorities. How did the assailant manage to enter without a trace? And who could be this unknown intruder? San Mateo County, with a population of 764,442, is known for its proximity to Silicon Valley, impacting its lifestyle with a blend of suburban and urban vibes. There are recreational places like parks and historic sites, adding a cultural touch. People here are diverse and often engage in tech and innovation. While the crime rate is relatively low compared to other parts of California, there's a focus on community safety. The mention of the John Harris Jr. cold case in 2023 highlights an instance of unresolved crime in this otherwise peaceful county. In the pre-dawn stillness of February 4th, 1989, a serene neighborhood in San Mateo, California, was pierced by an act of violence that would haunt the 3100 block of Casa de Campo for decades. A lone male, in an unsettling breach of security, slipped into an apartment. His first act was to arm himself with a knife from the kitchen, a common household item turned weapon. The intruder's next move was to make his way to the bedroom. That's where he really crossed the line, attacking not just the victim's place, but her personally. Climbing into the bed where she lay, the suspect initiated an attack that was both physical and psychological. In what became a struggle for life, he choked and stabbed the victim, narrowly missing her jugular vein. A stroke of deadly luck that saved her life. Even in the face of such terror, the woman's will to survive proved formidable. She fought back against her attacker, a man who kept his features obscured behind the fabric of a bandana. Her resilience was remarkable, and through a combination of courage and quick thinking, she convinced him to exit the apartment. This act of convincing the assailant to leave would later be a point of interest and wonder for all who learned of the incident. The woman then immediately contacted the police. The police, upon being alerted, descended upon the scene with a sense of urgency. They conducted interviews and processed the crime scene meticulously, searching for fingerprints, DNA, or any clue that would lead them to the perpetrator. Their efforts were exhaustive. The attention to detail painstaking. but the identity of the attacker remained a mystery. As weeks turned into months and months into years, the leads grew cold, and the trail went silent. The case file on the assault swelled with notes and reports, but no definitive answers. The person responsible for the heinous crime within the walls of that apartment had vanished into the ether, leaving behind a victim to grapple with the aftermath and a community shaken to its core. For over 30 years, the DNA evidence collected from the scene of the Casa de Campo attack was preserved, a silent witness waiting for science to catch up. As DNA technology advanced, investigators did not let the case gather dust. They tenaciously resubmitted the DNA evidence, hoping each time for a breakthrough that would give a voice to the truth. Their persistence paid off. In December of 2020, the continuous use of technology and forensic science intersected with the evidence from that fateful night. A match was found, an achievement that would have seemed almost magical to investigators back in 1989. The DNA pointed to a man named John Harris Jr., who, it turned out, had lived within the same neighborhood as the victim, though their paths had not knowingly crossed. John Harris Jr. had spent the past 3 decades under the radar. After the incident, he seemed to have moved through life in San Joaquin County, not too far from the scene of the crime, yet far enough to evade suspicion. By the time the DNA match was made, he had relocated to Arizona. The revelation that the suspect was living an ordinary life, perhaps believing that time had eroded the chances of capture, struck a chord with both the community and law enforcement. With the identification of Harris, the case that had gone cold was reignited with a new fervor. Questions that had hung in the air for years were now being addressed with fresh leads. The investigative team, armed with new evidence and a name, set out to piece together the movements and life of John Harris Jr. over the past 30 years. They needed to understand how he evaded suspicion and what ties he may have had that kept him connected to the neighborhood he once lived in. The unveiling of the suspect's identity was a seismic shift in the case, providing a direction that was previously obscured. It brought a measure of hope to those who believed that the case might never be solved. And it emphasized the message that justice, no matter how delayed, is persistent. John Harris Jr., the name now stands at the center of a decades-old cold case, emerging from the shadows due to a DNA breakthrough. But who is John Harris Jr.? Born in 1966, his story, much like the crime he's suspected of, is complex and enigmatic. With details of his birth, parents, and early life still obscured from public knowledge, Harris is somewhat of a phantom figure in the narrative of his own alleged crime. Believed to have lived mostly in San Joaquin County, California, Harris's life beyond the boundaries of his neighborhood remains a mystery. By 2020, he had made his home in Arizona. In the landscape of his professional life, Harris found a niche in Manteca, California, where he was employed by a company specializing in the installation of surveillance systems. A detail that carries a certain irony, given his subsequent criminal allegations. The scarcity of information on Harris paints a picture of a man who has successfully kept his life away from the public eye. What is understood is that Harris's existence wasn't conspicuous. There were no glaring signs pointing to a disturbed childhood or a troubled educational journey that the public is aware of. The absence of a known criminal history makes the sudden link to a violent crime all the more jarring. As the main suspect in an attempted murder case, Harris's DNA has irrevocably tied him to a heinous act, suggesting that beneath the veneer of an ordinary existence, there may lie a history of darker inclinations. No marital or family ties have been brought to light. Harris, in many respects, seems to be a solitary figure, disconnected from the relational anchors that typify most lives. The emergence of his name in connection with the case has undoubtedly sent ripples through his former community in San Joaquin County and beyond. Neighbors who might have merely nodded to Harris in passing now grapple with the chilling proximity of a man accused of a dangerous crime. At the age of 55, John Harris Jr. found his life abruptly upended. On Wednesday, the 25th of February 2021, he was detained, facing charges of attempted murder. The long arm of the law caught up with him near his place of employment in Manteca, California. This arrest wasn't just the result of diligent police work, but a pivotal breakthrough in DNA analysis. Ed Barberini, the police chief in San Mateo, confirmed the arrest made by local detectives in collaboration with district attorney investigators.
55-year-old John Harris Jr., a resident of Manteca. Yesterday, John Harris Jr. was arrested by San Mateo detectives and district attorney's inspectors in Manteca near his place of employment.
It wasn't an immediate connection. It took a persistent reopening of the case by Matt Broad, an inspector with the district attorney's office, acting upon the request of District Attorney Inspector Kevin Raffelli. Back then, Raffelli was a sergeant with the San Mateo Police, deeply involved in the investigation of this particularly disturbing case. The pursuit of justice for the atrocious crime from 1989 was relentless, and the determination of the investigators was unyielding. Harris had seemingly led a nomadic life within the Bay Area, with stints in San Mateo, Alameda, San Francisco, and San Joaquin counties. Despite this, he had remained under the radar, with his DNA not present in the national law enforcement database. The investigators had to pivot, exploring advanced genealogical methods to establish a connection, a technique akin to the one that unearthed the identity of the infamous Golden State Killer Joseph James D'Angelo. The DNA is, in the end, what matched him to this case, Inspector Broad stated, encapsulating the culmination of tireless investigative efforts. This scientific match would become the cornerstone of the case, irrefutably linking Harris to the crime that had haunted the community and the victims for over 3 decades. Raffelli, reflecting on the nature of the crime, remarked on its inhumanity and the lasting impression it left on the minds of those who worked the case. San Mateo during that time was not accustomed to dealing with crimes of such a horrific nature, and this particular incident had etched itself into the collective memory of the local law enforcement. District Attorney Steve Wagstaff acknowledged the complexity and sophistication of the investigative process. With Harris's DNA absent from the databases typically checked, the investigative team had to turn to more innovative methods to track down the perpetrator. Harris, following his arrest, was held in San Mateo County Jail, his bail set at a steep $500,000. The community, once oblivious to the dark past of a seemingly ordinary man, was now faced with the chilling reality of his alleged actions. For the victim and those affected, this arrest signified a long-awaited step towards closure and justice. John Harris Jr. found himself before the bench at San Mateo County Superior Court in Redwood City on a somber Friday afternoon, February 25, 2021, to hear his charges. The gravity of the situation was palpable as he faced an arraignment for 2 severe offenses: attempted murder and aggravated mayhem, both carrying the stark reality of life sentences. Justice Barbaras presided over the case with a measured demeanor, reflecting the seriousness of the charges. The courtroom, adhering to Supreme Court Rule 23, understood that the decisions here would not set a precedent, keeping the case's implications tightly bound to the present. Justice Barbaras, alongside Justices Vaughn and McCaney, formed a unanimous front in delivering the court's decision. In the complex weave of legal proceedings, John Harris Jr.'s attempt to revisit his conviction fell short. His post-conviction petition, an effort to overturn his prior guilty plea for first-degree murder, was summarily dismissed by the court. This dismissal wasn't taken lightly. It was after Harris Jr.'s appointed appellate counsel, the Office of the State Appellate Defender, or OSAD, filed a motion to withdraw, citing a lack of meritorious argument for error in the court's decision. Even with the opportunity to respond, Harris Jr. remained silent, leading the court to grant the motion and affirm the dismissal. The backstory to Harris Jr.'s current predicament revealed an intricate legal tussle. Initially, he had pleaded guilty to first-degree murder in exchange for a reduced 25-year sentence. However, claims of ineffective counsel and coercion surfaced, and a subsequent Krankel hearing saw his guilty plea momentarily withdrawn. The state's argument that they were unjustly excluded from the Krankel hearing led to the reinstatement of the guilty plea after appointing Harris Jr. new counsel. On appeal, Harris Jr. contended that his constitutional rights were breached when the guilty plea was reinstated. The appeal was denied, with the court maintaining that the initial withdrawal was premature, and upon review, found his plea to be voluntary and informed. Harris Jr.'s subsequent post-conviction petition was an attempt to navigate through these previous rulings. He claimed new arguments of collaboration among the trial court, defense counsel, and the prosecutor. But the court found it without merit, a verdict upheld by the OSAD. His actual innocence claim, lacking new evidence or proof, also failed to sway the court. Justice Barbaras concluded that the petition did not present any reasonably arguable issues, and properly dismissed within the procedural boundaries. In the end, the court's decision was final. The motion was granted, and the judgment was affirmed. Harris Jr.'s attempt to get a new trial finally came to a close, based on the principle that once a case is decided, you can't go after it again. In a recent news briefing, San Mateo Police Chief Ed Barberini conveyed the relief and gratitude of the victim in the John Harris Jr. case, which remained unresolved for over 3 decades. The victim, who has endured the unimaginable for 32 years, now has some closure with the apprehension of a suspect. The breakthrough in the cold case was made possible through the concerted efforts of the San Mateo County District Attorney's investigators, the FBI's San Francisco and Los Angeles divisions, Manteca Police, and the San Mateo Police detectives. It's a testament to their dedication and the power of collaborative law enforcement. Authorities have indicated that there may be more victims out there. They are currently processing additional DNA to uncover further evidence. To aid in this ongoing investigation, San Mateo Police are encouraging anyone with information about Harris to step forward. There are multiple ways to get in touch, one of which is to contact San Mateo Police Department's Investigative Bureau at 650-522-7650. Anonymous tips can be submitted to tinyurl.com/SMPD tips or by calling 650-522-7676. So what are your thoughts on the resolution of the cold case after 32 years? What best approach do you think could have been taken to know the assailant in time? Let us know your thoughts in the comments.
It took 41 years, but tonight Indiana State Police are saying case closed. A murder solved on the same day it happened, Halloween. WHS 11 Team's Taylor Woods and photojournalist Addie Hill are in Seymour, Indiana, where they talked to the victim's family and Indiana State Police after 41 long years.
On October 31st, 1982, a chilling incident occurred in the quiet rural areas of Jackson County. 24-year-old Clifford Smith, a dedicated civil servant of Seymour City, who held an honorary position for his country as a U.S. Army veteran, was fatally shot. This mystery lingered for decades. Clifford, last seen alive on Halloween, was reported missing by his wife Joyce Smith a few days later, on November 4th. Tragically, in December of the same year, his body was discovered near Rockford, just north of Seymour, along the serene White River, by two unsuspecting animal trappers. It was a grim scene. Clifford had been shot in the head, a fact later confirmed by officials. Who could have committed such a heinous act? And why did it take over 40 years to solve this cold case? Jackson County, Indiana, with a population of 46,428 as of 2020, is a region steeped in historical significance. It was the site of America's first recorded train robbery in 1886 by the Reno Gang. The county is also known for the Medora Covered Bridge, the world's second longest three-span covered bridge, a site of historical interest and local pride. This blend of historical events and landmarks shapes the character of Jackson County, reflecting a community that values its past. Amidst this backdrop, the Clifford Smith cold case, a long-standing mystery in the county, was finally solved in 2023. Clifford Smith, born on October 1, 1958, was a man whose life story remains partially veiled in mystery. Specific details about his parents' name and his personal aspirations are not widely known, which adds a layer of intrigue to his life story. After his untimely passing, Clifford was laid to rest in Scipio Cemetery, leaving behind his family. He was married to Joyce Anderson, sister of Ronald Anderson, and was a stepfather to Jennifer Anderson. His familial network extended further with 5 brothers, Lonnie, Ronnie, Anthony, and Timothy Smith, all from Columbus, and Leonard Smith from Indianapolis. Additionally, he had a sister, Tamara Gibbs, also residing in Indianapolis. Clifford served his community as an employee of Seymour City and honored his country as a U.S. veteran, showcasing his dedication to both local and national commitments. Clifford's life, though tragically cut short, was deeply rooted in his community and family, painting a picture of a man who was both a dedicated civil servant and a cherished family member. His story, while incomplete in public memory, is remembered by those who knew him, and is a part of the larger tapestry of the community he served. On the evening of December 1, 1982, around 8 p.m., a chilling discovery was made in a remote area of Jackson County, Indiana. 2 animal trappers, Scott Bridgewater and Randy Marshall, stumbled upon a haunting scene while navigating the bayou near the White River, that's north of the Rockford area. They found a body floating in a small pool of water in a secluded spot about half a mile east of County Road 700 East and just south of County Road 800 North. The only access to this secluded area was a dirt path weaving between fields. It led to a small wooded region known to flood often due to its proximity to the White River. The body they discovered was floating face up, dressed in blue jeans, a black t-shirt, and brown boots. A disturbing observation was that the top portion of the head and an area by the ear were missing, and the skin had turned a grayish color, indicating slight decomposition. The trappers promptly called the Indiana State Police in Seymour to report their grim find. At the time, the ISP had a police post in Seymour, and they quickly responded to the scene. Upon investigation, a billfold was retrieved from the pants pocket of the deceased, and inside, an identification card confirmed the identity of the body as Clifford Smith, born October 1st, 1958. The autopsy revealed a gruesome detail. Multiple pieces of buckshot were found in the head, and the death was attributed to extensive brain damage caused by the shotgun blast. The positioning of the gun suggested it was fired with the barrel inside the mouth, a detail that only deepened the mystery surrounding Clifford's death. Further investigation revealed that Clifford had been reported missing to the Seymour Police Department by his wife, Joyce Smith, on November 4th, 1982. This discovery not only brought closure to the mystery of his disappearance, but also opened a new chapter in the investigation of his tragic death. The circumstances surrounding Clifford's demise painted a grim picture of his final moments, leaving many questions unanswered about what led to such a violent end. Following the grim discovery of Clifford Smith's body, the Indiana State Police detectives embarked on a meticulous investigation to unravel the mystery of his death. The focus of their inquiry soon turned to two individuals closely linked to Clifford: his wife Joyce and her brother Ronald Anderson. This direction in the investigation was fueled by the intimate connections they had with Clifford, naturally raising questions about their potential involvement in the case. Joyce and Ronald, when confronted with the allegations, firmly denied any involvement in Clifford's tragic demise. Despite their denials, the detectives persisted in their efforts to uncover the truth. They delved deeper, exploring every possible lead and scrutinizing every detail that could shed light on the circumstances surrounding Clifford's death. However, their relentless pursuit of justice hit a dead end. All leads they followed, all avenues they explored, led to no substantial breakthrough in the case. No concrete evidence was found to implicate any suspects, and no arrests were made. In the relentless pursuit to solve the mystery behind Clifford Smith's tragic demise, the Indiana State Police detectives' investigation took a dramatic turn. The breakthrough came when Joyce Smith, Clifford's wife, decided to approach the police with a statement that would reshape the entire case. Joyce's testimony on December 10, 1982, implicated her brother, Ronald Anderson, in the crime, unveiling a complex and disturbing narrative. The events, according to Joyce, unfolded on the night of October 30th, 1982, at around 10 p.m. She was at Tim and Pat Lee's home at 112 East 13th Street in Seymour when Ronald and Clifford arrived with stolen items. Joyce, wanting no part in the stolen goods, distanced herself. Ronald left to get Tim and Pat, but only returned with Pat around 11 p.m. At this point, Joyce, Ronald, Clifford, and Pat were all present at the Lee home. Joyce recounted that Clifford, under the influence of alcohol, insisted on her accompanying him home, which she refused. She became so frustrated that she yelled out, wishing something bad would happen to him. In response, Clifford made a distressing statement about taking his own life. During this tense situation, Ronald expressed his resentment towards Clifford, blaming him for the burglary and the subsequent possession of stolen items. Ronald also claimed to have been physically abused by Clifford throughout the day. In a chilling sequence of events, Joyce described how Ronald retrieved Tim's pump-action shotgun and loaded it with 4 red shells. Ronald then ominously warned Joyce to keep silent about the gun, threatening her life. Ronald's behavior became increasingly erratic as he demanded Clifford to leave with him. An altercation ensued, with Clifford striking Ronald before leaving the house. Joyce noted that Ronald followed Clifford, honking the car horn outside. Joyce was later taken to her mother's home by Pat, where she observed Ronald arriving later in the night. The next morning, Ronald's actions became more suspicious, as he requested to be dropped off near the Roxay skating rink, close to the murder scene, and took Joyce's car keys to retrieve some stolen goods from her car. Upon returning the car keys to Joyce, Ronald instructed her not to use the car for a few days, heightening the suspicion about his involvement in Clifford's death. Joyce, while at Pat's house, noticed the shotgun back in its original place. When questioned, Ronald gave conflicting accounts of the previous night's events, but maintained his threat towards Joyce to keep silent about the gun. The investigation by ISP Detective Jim Blevins brought to light Ronald's contradictory and evolving statements. Ronald admitted to various actions, including wiping off the shotgun shells, and acknowledging that the weapon used was not a .22 caliber rifle, but a shotgun. He also confessed to purchasing acid on the day of the murder. Ronald's narratives varied drastically, initially blaming Tim Lee for Clifford's murder, then claiming 2 men with long guns were responsible. He later stated that Greg Howard, a man he and Clifford met at a park, and another man, forcibly took Clifford and shot him near the bayou in Rockford. In an interview on April 13, 1982, Ronald provided a detailed account of the events leading to Clifford's death. He claimed that after an argument between Greg and Clifford, Greg shot Clifford with the shotgun as he attempted to flee. Ronald admitted to cleaning the blood off the shotgun and returning it to its original place, further discarding empty shells off the Rockford Dam and the White River. The case took another turn on August 13, 2014, when ISP Detective Roger Drew II, along with Jackson County Coroner Roger Wheeler, and pathologists Dr. George Weir and Dr. J. Wesley Whitler, revisited the case. It was discovered that the death certificate from 1982 was still pending, and that the coroner's verdict, written by Coroner Keith Burkholder at the time, suggested a self-inflicted gunshot wound as the cause of Clifford's death. As time passed, the fervor of the investigation waned. The lack of new evidence or leads caused the case to gradually fade into the background, and it eventually went cold. The Clifford Smith cold case, a puzzle that remained unsolved for decades, saw a significant development in 2015. Detective Kip Main was assigned to the case on September 21st, reigniting the investigation with fresh perspectives and renewed determination. A crucial tip came on July 29th in 2016 from Jennifer Rodriguez, a family member, who spoke of a jacket in an attic, linked to the night of Clifford's suspected murder. Following this lead on August 2, 2016, Jennifer was interviewed by Detective Main and Joyce Smith, now Joyce Dreyer, mentioning a jacket in the attic on the night in question. This information propelled the investigation forward, leading to a search of the attic on August 15, 2016, in a quest for evidence. Unfortunately, this search yielded no significant findings. Joyce, when re-interviewed on October 26th, reiterated earlier facts and added a crucial detail. She claimed that on the night of Clifford's disappearance, Ronald Anderson, her brother, had worn his military jacket, which she never saw again after that night. Joyce recalled hearing Ronald tell their mother he had left the jacket at a party, which sparked the interest of investigators, considering its potential connection to the crime. During this period, Detective Main discussed the case with coroner Roger Wheeler and pathologist Whitler. Further interviews were conducted with Ronald Anderson and his wife, Tammy, on August 26, 2016. On August 31, 2016, a significant update was added to Autopsy CA-8226. Dr. Whitler, reviewing the case again, concluded that Clifford's death was actually a murder. This was a pivotal change, as all official paperwork now reflected this new conclusion. Ronald's story began to shift during these interactions. He admitted that the shotgun he loaded and took from Tim's house was the very same one used to kill Clifford. Ronald confessed his anger towards Clifford was the reason he loaded the shotgun, intending to scare him out of the house. He stated that Greg Howard shot Clifford from about 5 feet away, resulting in Clifford's fatal injury. Ronald also mentioned returning to the murder scene to collect spent shotgun shells, which he then threw into the river to destroy evidence. On November 7, 2017, Tammy Anderson revealed that her husband Ronald told her the shooter was Clifford's brother, Lonnie Smith. However, on February 9, 2018, Ronald contradicted this statement, asserting his presence at the time of Clifford's murder and detailing events that led up to the fatal shooting. He described how both he and Clifford, under the influence of drugs, encountered Lonnie and Greg at a park. Following an argument between Clifford and Greg shot Clifford in the left side of his head. The final death certificate for Clifford, obtained on November 8, 2016, stated the cause of death as extensive brain damage sustained by homicidal shotgun blast to the head. This official recognition marked a significant turning point in the case. Ronald's narratives over the years were fraught with inconsistencies and changes, reflecting a complex web of deception and fragmented memories, likely exacerbated by his admitted drug use. His statements varied, from blaming Tim Lee, then shifting to other unidentified men, and later implicating Greg Howard and Lonnie Smith in different capacities. In a final attempt to resolve the case on June 3, 2021, Detective Main contacted Ronald and Tammy Anderson. Ronald had previously stated his willingness to show the exact location of Clifford's murder, near the bayou. Plans were made for June 4, 2021, for Ronald to guide Detective Main and Sergeant Roger Drew to the crime scene. However, when the detectives arrived at Ronald's residence, he expressed his overwhelming anxiety and refusal to be further involved. This marked the last interaction with Ronald Anderson. Despite the myriad twists and turns in his narrative, the investigation persisted, piecing together the fragmented and conflicting accounts. Based on the accumulated facts and testimonies, probable cause was established, leading to the belief that Ronald J. Anderson committed the murder of Clifford Anderson. Ronald Jack Anderson, born in 1962, stands as a complex figure in the Clifford Smith cold case. Known to some by the nickname Space Monkey, Ronald was the brother of Joyce Smith, Clifford's wife. Details about his parents or exact date of birth remain unclear. Ronald's life, interwoven with personal struggles and a criminal path, paints a picture of a man caught in a web of his own making. His connection to his sister Joyce and his involvement in Clifford's life and eventual death suggest a turbulent mix of family dynamics and emotional turmoil. The full extent of Ronald's criminal history, education, or childhood behaviors is not thoroughly documented. However, his role in the tragic events that unfolded around Clifford Smith's death reveals a side of him that was troubled and perhaps deeply conflicted. His marriage, if any, and details about his children remain unknown, adding to the mystery of his life outside of this infamous case. Ronald's story, marked by this heinous crime, leaves many questions unanswered about his deeper character and the life he led beyond what the public eye has seen. On October 31st, 2023, exactly 41 years to the day since the murder of Clifford Smith, Ronald J. Anderson, now age 61, was arrested. This marked a significant turn in the decades-long Clifford Smith cold case. Anderson's apprehension, carried out by detectives from the Indiana State Police in Seymour, was conducted smoothly, without any incident. Following his arrest, Ronald Anderson was taken to the Jackson County Jail, where he is being held without bond. This development brought a long-awaited sense of progress in a case that had lingered in the shadows for over 4 decades. The legal proceedings for Anderson are set in motion, with a pretrial conference scheduled for December 12, 2023, at the Jackson County Circuit Court. Judge Richard Pointner is assigned to preside over the case. This pretrial conference will be a crucial step in setting the stage for the trial and determining the course of the legal arguments and evidence presented. The jury trial is slated for April 16, 2024, at 8:30 a.m., marking a significant date in the pursuit of justice for Clifford Smith. This trial is anticipated to be a focal point in the local community, bringing to light details of a case that has haunted the area for years. The eyes of Jackson County, and indeed those who have followed this case over the years, will be on trial, seeking closure and justice in a case that has long been shrouded in mystery and tragedy. The arrest in the Clifford Smith cold case brought a long-awaited sense of resolution to a family that had been grappling with uncertainty and grief for over 4 decades. Sergeant Stephen Wheelis, the public information officer for the Indiana State Police, reflected on this significant moment, acknowledging the profound relief it brought to the Clifford family. I imagine it's kind of a sigh of relief after all these years to finally get that word that an arrest has been made in the death of their loved one, Wheelis said.
Combining it with more recent investigative techniques, and it ultimately led to where we had enough information to present the case to the prosecutor. But I imagine it's kind of a sigh of relief after all these years to finally get that word that an arrest has been made in the death of their loved one.
This breakthrough in the Clifford Smith case symbolizes more than just closure for one family. It represents a beacon of hope for other families, still seeking answers in cold cases. Indiana State Police, through their diligent work, aim to provide similar resolutions to other unresolved cases, bringing peace to more families who have been waiting for justice. Leonard Smith, Clifford's brother, expressed his family's long-held conviction and relief at the development.
I'm glad that they finally are bringing a closure to this, allowing us to let our brother rest in peace. That's who done it. Our whole family. We knew that he done it.
As we close the chapter on Clifford Smith cold case, 2 questions linger. What could have led to such a tragic outcome in Clifford's life? And how might this case have been different if certain details were discovered earlier? We're eager to hear your thoughts on this case. Let us know in the comments. Also, if there's a case you're curious about and would like us to explore, feel free to drop your recommendations in the comment section below. For more captivating true crime stories, remember to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Your engagement helps us bring more of these stories to light. On April 5, 2005, a 45-year-old Canadian woman named Barbara Callow was discovered dead by hotel cleaning staff at the Windsor Inn in Arizona. Barbara had traveled all the way from Canada to Lake Havasu City to see the desert wildflowers in bloom. The last time anyone saw Barbara alive was around 8:40 p.m. It was the previous night when the hotel staff encountered her. Extensive research and investigations were initiated to uncover the truth behind Barbara Callow's murder. These efforts finally bore fruit nearly 2 decades later, when the perpetrator was identified due to DNA advancements. As we get into the details of this mystery, we are left with 2 pressing questions. Who could have been responsible for Barbara Callow's murder, considering she was just a traveler from another country? What could have been the motive behind this heinous crime? Stick with us to find out. This case takes us to Lake Havasu City, situated on the eastern shore of Lake Havasu, along the California-Arizona border. It is a popular destination, drawing around 1 million visitors annually. Known for its historic London Bridge, crystal clear lake, welcoming community, abundant sunshine, and various annual events, it offers an ideal climate, diverse dining options, and lodging. The city typically has a low crime rate compared to the rest of Arizona. However, on April 5, 2005, the local community was shaken by the murder of Barbara, an unsettling event that stood out in an otherwise peaceful locale. Barbara Irene Callow was born in 1960 to parents Bridget Callow and Werner Callow in Toronto, Canada. She also had a younger brother, Peter, with whom she was quite attached. She spent her early life in Toronto. From a very young age, Barbara exhibited remarkable intelligence and a clear career ambition. She pursued her education at the University of Guelph's Veterinary College, earning a master's degree. Following her academic journey, Barbara embarked on a career as a researcher, displaying her passion for knowledge. In 1992, the Canadian federal government recognized her talents and hired her as a meat inspector. Over the years, she transitioned to veterinary biologics, ultimately rising to a role in the science branch where she provided valuable guidance on animal health matters. Her colleagues admired her as a brilliant, adventurous, and proactive individual. Outside of work, Barbara was a multifaceted person with a love for gardening, bicycling, art, and birdwatching. She also had a deep-seated passion for travel. However, Barbara's promising life took a tragic turn when she went on a vacation trip and left Ottawa on March 25, 2005. In 2005, 45-year-old Barbara planned to go on a vacation trip alone. The core of her plan was to witness the enchanting bloom of desert wildflowers in the heart of Arizona. She left her home in Ottawa on March 25th and began her journey. Her first destination was Abbotsford, British Columbia, and from there she continued to Las Vegas, Nevada. On March 26th, she rented a car, setting the wheels of her expedition in motion. Barbara then drove to Yuma, Arizona, where she took a day to explore the surroundings. Eager to continue her exploration, she then drove to Lake Havasu City, Arizona, which provided to be her final destination. On April 2nd, she checked into the Windsor Inn Motel, where she planned to use her room as a comfortable base for day trips into the captivating Arizona landscape. Barbara's journey was not just a quest to see wildflowers, but also an adventure filled with anticipation and the promise of new experiences. However, this promising adventure would soon take an unexpected turn. On the evening of April 4th, 2005, Barbara was last seen by the motel staff at around 8:40 p.m. Later that night, she phoned her mother, Bridget, in Toronto, informing her that she planned to extend her stay in Lake Havasu for another day, before driving to Las Vegas to catch her flight home. However, when the next morning arrived, Barbara failed to show up for breakfast. Concerned by her absence, the housekeepers decided to check on her. To their shock, they discovered her lifeless body in the motel room. They called the police straight away. Police soon arrived after the 911 call and entered Barbara's room. The body was immediately taken for an autopsy while the police continued to search the room. Investigators collected DNA evidence, which might have belonged to the suspect at the crime scene, preserving it for future use in their quest to solve the case. An autopsy later revealed that the cause of her death was asphyxiation, the result of being smothered by a pillow. Another unsettling thing was the fact that several items were missing from her room, including her purse, credit cards, cell phone identification, and the very pillow which was believed to be used for her murder. Adding to the mystery, the rental car she had used for her journey was also stolen, which was eventually found abandoned 2 days later along Interstate 15 in California's Mojave Desert. At the time, Lake Havasu Police Lieutenant Joe Archie suggested that Barbara might have confronted someone attempting to break into her rental car. While it's possible she knew the individual, it was more likely a situation where she was in the wrong place at the wrong time. It seems to be crime of opportunity, where the car seemed to be the focus, and then for whatever reason, something happened that caused this to get ugly. The news of Barbara's tragic end reached her family in Toronto, leading her brother to swiftly fly from Toronto to Lake Havasu City to claim her body. Investigators at the local community were extremely shocked and disturbed, considering the surprising and confusing events surrounding Barbara's death, but were eager to find justice. We basically have a 200-mile crime scene that we have to investigate. That, in itself, is a pretty daunting task. With evidence we collected at the motel, we have witnesses who told us certain things that we have to follow up with. Charlie Casson, who was the spokesperson for Lake Havasu City back then, also mentioned the fact that violent incidents were not common in the city. It's not the kind of thing that happens often in this community. We are a resort community and a relatively quiet community, and something like this certainly shakes us to our core. Despite initial efforts, a lack of substantial evidence and limited advancements in DNA technology propelled the case to go cold. After years of uncertainty and growing anguish for Barbara's family, a glimmer of hope emerged in 2018. Lake Havasu's Police Department's Cold Case Squad and Criminal Investigations Unit decided to reopen the case. They revisited the evidence, including the DNA collected at the crime scene back in 2005. Finally, in a significant breakthrough, they managed to identify a suspect. The individual responsible for Barbara's tragic demise was suspected to be 60-year-old Stacy Childs. This marked a crucial step towards justice for Barbara Callow and her grieving family. Stacy Childs, born in 1962 in Santa Cruz, California, has a troubling history of run-ins with the law. While details about his parents or early childhood are barely known, his criminal record speaks volumes. Before the suspicion, he had already been found guilty of several offenses. Among the charges for which he was found guilty in California, there's a 2018 misdemeanor for threatening to injure someone, a 2012 felony conviction for receiving stolen property, a 2005 felony conviction for evading a peace officer, and a 2004 felony conviction for false imprisonment. For the last two charges, he was sentenced to serve more than 2.5 years in San Quentin State Prison. Following the identification of Childs as the suspect in Barbara's murder, he was immediately taken into custody on April 26, 2022. The trial of Childs soon commenced following his arrest. He was initially charged with second-degree murder. Deputy County Attorney Amanda Clairhout revealed during the trial that a pillow and telephone cord were missing from the motel room where Barbara had stayed, room number 139. He also mentioned that a medical examiner's report noted significant evidence, including a laceration to Callow's cheek, bruising around her neck, and ligature marks on her feet. The turning point in the case came with the renewed analysis of DNA evidence collected from under the victim's fingernails in 2005 and from Childs in 2008. This analysis, conducted in 2022, led to the decision to charge Childs with the crime. However, Childs' defense attorney, Paul Amon, argued that his client had cooperated with the police investigation and willingly provided a DNA sample. Amon asserted that Childs vehemently denied any involvement in Barbara's murder. Despite the trial taking place and the jury deliberating for over 4 hours across 2 days, they ultimately informed Judge Derek Carlisle that they could not reach a unanimous verdict. Consequently, Judge Carlisle declared a mistrial and excused the jury from further deliberation. Following the mistrial, Deputy County Attorney Amanda Clairhout expressed her intent to retry Childs. However, the judge intervened and directed a verdict of acquittal, resulting in Childs' release from the Adult Detention Center. In the end, Stacy Childs was released from custody, his fate uncertain, but he maintained his innocence in regards to the killing of Barbara. The loss of the free-spirited Barbara is still a heavy burden for her family. Her friends and neighbors continue to feel her absence, missing the kind soul she was. Despite the acquittal of Childs, questions still linger about who could have taken her life and how the DNA evidence found its match with Childs. Uncertainty shrouds this case, leaving the Callow family in search of answers. Barbara's independent and adventurous spirit is remembered fondly by those who knew her, and her desire to explore new places and appreciate the beauty of the world endures in their memories. Her mother still remembers the day she went on the vacation. She went on a trip to see the flowers, the white flowers and the cacti blooms, she said. Because of the rain in California, it was supposed to be a spectacular year for bloom. Her neighbor, Key Dunn, while remembering her, mentioned, "She said she just wanted to go for a rest and just be quiet. She didn't have anyone with her. She was a very friendly person." While the family could not reclaim their loved one, the thought that the police caught the perpetrator was a step towards healing. Now that he's been acquitted, the family still searches for answers and mourns the untimely demise of their beloved daughter. The case of Barbara Callow is a tragic and complex one. The case's outcome is marked by uncertainty, as it remains unresolved and the truth about Barbara Callow's death remains elusive. But such cases remind us of the complexities and challenges in solving cold cases, and highlights the importance of advancements in forensic technology. It also emphasizes the need for justice and the closure for the victims' families and the community. Now, let's hear what you make of this case. What potential challenges do you think the prosecution and defense faced during the trial of Stacey Childs? And how might these have influenced the outcome? Given the advancements in forensic technology and DNA analysis, do you believe there is hope for a resolution in cold cases like Barbara Callow's in the future? Or are there limitations that might impede justice from being served? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. In the early hours of January 3, 1991, Seaside, California police responded to a troubling incident at Sabado Park. What they discovered was the lifeless body of 34-year-old mother Vicki Johnson on the playground sands. Given the initial observation, the police officers were stunned by the violent treatment of Vicki's body. The death also sent shockwaves through the Seaside community, primarily due to the viciousness of the incident. However, investigators struggled to make progress on the case, as there were no direct leads they could find at that time. It wasn't until 2021 that the advancements in DNA technology breathed new life into the investigation. The killer, who had eluded justice for so long, was finally identified through these scientific breakthroughs, providing closure to a community haunted by decades of uncertainty. As we unfold the details, why did it take almost 3 decades to solve this case? What DNA evidence finally cracked the case open? Let's find out. Our case takes us to Seaside. It is a city located in Monterey County, California, and graces the central coast along the scenic Monterey Bay, just north of the city of Monterey. Renowned for its picturesque beaches and commitment to higher education, this small coastal gem offers a great quality of life. The city is also known for its reputation as a relatively safe city, with lower rates of violent crime. However, peace and tranquility were far from the norm in the 1990s, when the city grappled with gang activities and shootings. It was during those turbulent days that a significant incident unfolded. Vicki Renee Johnson was born on February 19, 1956, in Kern County, California, to parents Virginia Ruth and Tommy Jackson. She shared her childhood with a brother, Mark Anthony, and a sister, Valerie Albertha. Although specific details about her education remain unknown, Vicki's brilliance and remarkable sense of responsibility shone brightly from a very young age. As the years went by, Vicki embraced matrimony 3 times, and from each marriage she welcomed 1 son, Robbie Orlando and Jamel Damon. One of her husbands, Tommy, was also an ex-Army staff sergeant. Vicki found joy and purpose in education, passionately serving as a teaching aide at the local Seaside preschool. Her life held the promise of a bright future, surrounded by a loving family, none of whom suspected the tragic events that were about to unfold. Thursday, January 3, 1991 started like any other day for Vicki. She followed her routine and went teaching at the local school. However, after work, she did not return home. Her mother, Virginia, grew increasingly anxious when Vicky failed to return. Her anxiety was also influenced by the fact that local shootings and gang activities had significantly increased in the neighborhood at that time. But she still waited, hoping against hope that she would soon return home. The day went by, and night arrived. Vicky's mother prayed for her safe return. However, she didn't call the police to avoid the unnecessary attention from the neighbors. Around 12:42 a.m., a local resident passing Sabado Park noticed something unimaginable: a burning body. The shock prompted an immediate call to the local police, forever altering the quiet night and thrusting the community into an unforeseen tragedy. When the police arrived at the scene, they were met with the horrifying sight of a woman's burning body in a sandbox. Initially, the police canvassed the area near Darwin Park and H Place, interviewing residents and thoroughly examining the sandbox and park surroundings for any leads. Despite their detailed investigation, no initial clues emerged. It isn't clear how the police identified Vicky. However, this is what Chief Nick Borges of the Seaside Police had to say. "Back then, nobody called. No one saw this. There's no witnesses to the scene. How is that even possible? That goes back to the culture that existed in this community, that it was such a scary, violent place. Nobody would even call the police to tell us." A timeline of Vicky's activities leading up to the tragedy was compiled. Yet the police struggled to identify a suspect or motive. Gang activity was also ruled out, despite the area's new norm. The body was immediately sent for an autopsy. Results revealed gruesome details. Vicky had been strangled, suffocated, and bitten all over before the heinous act of setting her on fire. A neighbor disturbed by the unprecedented nature of the crime remarked in the Californian on January 4, 1991, "I never heard of nothing like this. Shootings and stuff, but nothing like this. It's sickening to get burned up like that." Terrified neighbors accustomed to shootings found Vicky's fate particularly distressing, given the proximity to their homes and a park where their children usually played. As the investigation unfolded, the community grappled with the realization that even in a neighborhood familiar with growing adversity, Vicky's cruel fate stood out as an unimaginable tragedy. They demanded that the perpetrator needed to be found with immediate effect. During the investigation, a potential suspect emerged in the form of Joseph Dermonte Mitchell Jr., a known felon with a disturbing criminal history. In 1988, Mitchell had pleaded for leniency after physically assaulting a young woman and assaulting her handicapped mother. He served 4 years in jail and was eventually released. Following his release, Mitchell continued to offend, leaving a trail of violent acts against women in his wake. So he was considered a suspect. However, no conclusive evidence linked Mitchell to Vicky's murder. Hence, there was no further inquiry regarding their linkage. After this, the leads completely dried up, and the investigation hit a dead end. As a result, the case went cold and remained unsolved for decades, leaving the seaside community haunted by the lingering mystery of Vicky's tragic fate. For almost 3 decades, the murder of Vicky remained unsolved, contributing to Seaside's existing reputation as a violent and unsafe community. The initial investigation yielded no arrests, lacking eyewitnesses or viable suspects. In 2021, the Monterey County District Attorney's Office Cold Case Task Force, established in 2020, reopened Johnson's case in collaboration with the Seaside Police Department. Thanks to this collaboration, additional evidence was sent to the California Department of Justice for DNA testing, leading to a significant breakthrough in the case. It was Vicky's strong determination to survive which became the key factor in identifying the suspect. His name was found to be Frank Lewis McClure. The police mentioned that Vicky fought valiantly against her attacker to the extent that she broke one of her nails during the struggle. The evidence retrieved from beneath her nails was carefully preserved, enduring over time until advancements in DNA technology facilitated the eventual identification of her killer. There are no records of Frank's early life, except that he was born in 1944. He had a history of multiple violent offenses, including assault with a deadly weapon and domestic violence against women. The specifics of these crimes have not been disclosed. In Vicky's case, he wasn't suspected initially, because the level of these assaults was not of such big stature that would have alarmed the police at that time. His family was known in the community, and the revelation of his involvement in Vicky's murder surprised many. McClure, 46 at the time of Vicky's murder, had his DNA in a national database due to a prior felony conviction. McClure peacefully passed away in his seaside home in 2021, at the age of 77, having lived a full life. Vicky left behind 3 sons, one of whom is the renowned NBA player Orlando Johnson. Despite being only 1 year old when he lost his mother, Orlando expressed immense gratitude upon learning that the culprit was finally found. Now 34, the same age his mother was at the time of her tragic death in 1991, Orlando is currently in his 11th season of professional basketball. Reflecting on his mother's resilience, he shared, "She took on the challenge of raising my aunties, uncles, brothers, cousins, and never let none of the trials and tribulations get in the way of providing for us. Watching her hustle, watching her work, makes me push to be as good as her. If I can do that, I'll be pretty happy with my life." Seaside Police Chief Nick Borges also expressed his outrage, stating, "I think the fact that he, McClure, remained in Seaside all those years demonstrates his level of confidence and arrogance that the case would never be solved. I am outraged that McClure felt comfortable enough to not only stay in Seaside, but continue to commit crime." The testing of the DNA acquired from Vicky's fingernails faced significant delays, taking 2 years to yield a positive match. Borges attributed this delay to backlogs and lack of staffing, expressing frustration with the challenges authorities encounter in solving long-standing cases and providing closure to victims' families. There is still mystery surrounding the connection between Vicky and McClure. "That's the mystery here," Borges said. Seaside, being a small community, increases the likelihood that the victim and the killer had some level of acquaintance. However, the only discernible link between them is their involvement with illegal drugs. It's really difficult because he's dead, so we may never know. Vicky became involved in drugs in her later life. While this could potentially link Vicky to McClure, there are still some factors in the story that are unclear. Vicky rests in peace at Mission Memorial Park in Seaside, with her grave frequently visited by family members. After Vicky's passing, Orlando was taken care of by his grandmother and stepbrothers. Living at 1484 Sonoma in Seaside, he, the youngest surviving member of the Jackson household, faced challenges that might have overwhelmed others. Having never met his father, and with his mother tragically murdered when he was just 1 year old, one might assume Orlando's hardships were done. However, at the age of 7, he experienced another devastating loss, A house fire sparked by a faulty space heater ignited Christmas decorations, claiming the lives of his great-grandmother, aunt, and 2 closest cousins, all of whom he lived with. Despite these adversities, Orlando Johnson's journey continued, and he grew up to become a formidable basketball player. This speaks volumes about the strength and resilience inherited from his mother, Vicky. Though she wasn't there to raise him, her wit and strength undoubtedly played a crucial role in shaping him into the person he is today. With Vicky Johnson's case now resolved and her family finding a degree of comfort, let's hear what you make of this case. In cases where the motive remains unknown, what steps can law enforcement take to unravel the mystery? Considering the challenges faced in solving cold cases, what improvements or resources do you believe are needed to enhance the effectiveness of law enforcement efforts in bringing justice to long-standing mysteries? We appreciate your thoughts and opinions. If there are other cases you'd like us to delve into, or suggestions for our next story, please feel free to share them in the comments below. Your input is important in shaping the stories that we bring to you.
A Spokane man's been arrested for murdering a woman in California more than 40 years ago.
In 1979, a woman was beaten, strangled, and left for dead. Evidence was gathered, including a sexual assault kit.
In 1979, a 35-year-old Jewish woman from Virginia named Patricia Carnahan disappeared while traveling by car to California. Later on, she was reported missing in October, and her vehicle was discovered abandoned in Venice, California. Then, later, her dead body was subsequently discovered at a campsite at Sugar Pine Point State Park near Lake Tahoe. According to the initial reports, she had been killed by strangulation and beating. As we get into further details, some important questions arise. What could have been the cause of Patricia's murder? Why was the killer not found earlier? And why did it take almost 44 years to find and arrest them? Was it negligence? Or was it purposely delayed? South Lake Tahoe is a picturesque resort town nestled in the Sierra Nevada mountains of California. Its stunning mountain lake views and serene ambiance can easily deceive visitors into thinking it's a haven of safety and tranquility. However, delving into FBI crime statistics reveals a different story. South Lake Tahoe's crime rate stands at almost 77% higher than the average for California's cities and towns. The tragic murder of Patricia Carnahan serves as a poignant reminder of the unsettling reality that lurks beneath the town's charming facade. Visitors and residents alike must remain vigilant in this seemingly idyllic yet troubled community. In 1979, a mysterious woman was discovered dead by Lake Tahoe, her story haunting the waters and captivating minds ever since. Nobody knew her name or what had happened to her, but in 2015, we finally learned her name, Patricia Carnahan. Not much is known about the victim or her family, although they did come forward when she disappeared. Considering that she was wearing a chai pendant at the time of her death, it was assumed that she belonged to the Jewish community. Police investigations in 1979 determined that the victim suffered severe blows and died from strangulation. But at the time, her identification was not possible, so her body remained unclaimed by her relatives for decades. Patricia's identity was not known until 2015, when the case was re-examined. This was accomplished because in 2014, investigator John Gaines took on the case as part of the El Dorado County Cold Case Homicide Unit, tasked with reanalyzing unsolved murders from the 1970s, 1980s, and 1990s. Supported by a forensic anthropologist, Gaines exhumed the body from a grave in Tahoma and published photographs of the jewelry, including a necklace she was wearing on the day of the crime. It was a chai pendant, often mentioned as a Jewish symbol of life. According to a statement from the detective to local media, he explained how he was able to identify the importance of that clue. Elvis used to wear the same necklace, and I recognized it. Investigator Gaines later turned to the Jewish community in the El Dorado area, hoping that this clue could help identify the woman. When Patricia's body was exhumed, in addition to DNA matches, relatives recognized the pendant she was wearing, according to the El Dorado prosecutor's office. This is how the prosecutors discovered that she had been reported missing in the state of Virginia a month after her death. The family's last contact with her mentioned she was touring around California. However, they couldn't pinpoint exactly where she went missing after that. The next step was to track down the clues of the alleged murderer, who for 4 decades believed himself far from the authorities for that crime. Patricia Carnahan's lifeless body was found in a Lake Tahoe campground on September 28, 1979. However, it was not until Monday, February 27, 2023, that Harold Carpenter, age 63, was arrested in his downtown apartment in Spokane, Washington. Recently, the police made a remarkable breakthrough. They believe they've found the man who might have killed Patricia 44 years ago. The key to this discovery? DNA from an assault kit taken from a woman in Spokane back in 1994. Meet Harold Carpenter, a 63-year-old who lived in downtown Spokane. His arrest is a testament to old-fashioned detective work and the power of forensic science in solving cold cases. Back in 1994, Carpenter was accused of assaulting a homeless woman in Spokane. Nurses and doctors collected evidence during a medical examination, but he claimed it was consensual. He even accused her of taking his wallet. They also collected his DNA at that time. However, he was released from jail the next day, and the investigation was put on hold when they lost contact with the woman, who has since passed away. The crucial moment came last summer, when the long-neglected assault kit was sent to a crime lab as part of the Washington State Sexual Assault Kit Initiative. This initiative aims to test all the previously untested assault kits, and Spokane Police Department was one of the few in the state dedicated to working on these cases full-time. Out of about 1,500 kits dating back to 1981, they got around 250 matches in the DNA database known as CODES. This has led to the resolution of a few cases, although the 1994 assault can't be prosecuted due to the statute of limitations. Sergeant Zach Storman expressed gratitude that this testing led to another case being solved, saying, "I'm glad it happened. It's good to see something come of the rape kit testing program." Brittany Wright, a forensic specialist, played a vital role. She managed to extract a male DNA profile from the assault kit, which she entered into CODES. The DNA profile found in the assault kit turned out to match the DNA collected from Patricia Carnahan's body. Her body was discovered at a picnic area in Sugar Pine Point State Park in El Dorado County, California, back on September 28, 1979. She had been a victim of a cruel beating and strangulation. The assault kit consists of evidence collected through a forensic examination designed to preserve possible DNA evidence, which can be matched against a nationwide database. A national effort was undertaken in recent years to address the backlog of kits, the prosecutor's office said. When the assault occurred, the case was considered unprovable, police said, as they stopped having contact with the woman who made the accusation. Shortly after she died, according to court records, the genetic testing kit or package was recovered in 2022 and underwent new testing last year. Through a DNA match, investigators in El Dorado, California, connected Carpenter's DNA with genetic traces retrieved from Patricia Carnahan's body. Based on this evidence, the El Dorado County District Attorney's Office asserts that Harold Carpenter, currently age 63, is suspected of killing Patricia Carnahan in 1979. Patricia was 35 years old at the time, and Harold Carpenter, the man suspected of her murder, was 19. The male DNA found on a beer bottle near the location where Carnahan's body was found matched the DNA collected during her autopsy. However, the men who discovered her body didn't match this DNA profile. This DNA profile had been stored in CODES, waiting for a match. Finally, after many years, the match was found this month with the DNA collected in the 1994 assault kit. This marks the 13th cold case successfully solved by the El Dorado County Cold Case Team, as stated in a news release. Vern Pearson, the district attorney of El Dorado County, proudly stated, "Our cold case unit is one of the most successful in the United States. It's heartening to note that Miss Carnahan, who was buried as an unidentified female in a potter's field, has been identified with the help of her family, thanks to the unwavering commitment of investigators. Furthermore, due to collaboration between multiple agencies across states, her killer will finally be held accountable." Following the DNA match, El Dorado County detectives uncovered that Carpenter had been arrested in Susanville, California on September 29, 1979, just a day after Carnahan's body was discovered. He was arrested on suspicion of driving under the influence. Subsequently, Carpenter was handed over to the Bonneville County Sheriff in Idaho, where he served time for an unrelated burglary charge. Surprisingly, Carpenter was never suspected of being involved in Carnahan's murder until the recent DNA match in CODES, as indicated in court records. During the early 1990s, Carpenter had several misdemeanor arrests in Idaho, although misdemeanors typically do not lead to DNA collection. It appears that Carpenter settled in Sandpoint, Idaho with his wife during most of the late 1990s, but they divorced in 1998. The same year, he was convicted of domestic battery. From 1998 to 2018, Carpenter accumulated a number of misdemeanor convictions and arrests in Bonner County, including drug possession, disturbing the peace, reckless driving, and driving under the influence. His criminal history in Washington was limited with only a single conviction for driving under the influence in the year 2000. Around 2016, Carpenter became homeless in Spokane, according to a 2020 report on homelessness in the Inlander. Shortly thereafter, he moved into Park Tower Apartments, a residence designed for low-income elderly and disabled individuals, according to court records. In 2023, more than 4 decades after her disappearance in 1979, Carnahan's murderer was identified and apprehended. She had gone missing while on a solo road trip through California. In 2018, Carpenter, the murderer, was a suspect in another assault case in Spokane County. Furthermore, just last year, he was also suspected in an incident involving unwanted touching, but he was never arrested in either case, according to court records. Carpenter made his initial court appearance in Spokane and is currently held in custody on a $1 million bail. Carpenter's extradition process is currently underway, as he remains in custody without the option for bail in Spokane. However, the situation surrounding the related assault case in Spokane is particularly complex. Tragically, this case will not proceed due to a combination of factors. Firstly, the statute of limitations for assault cases has expired, rendering it legally impossible to pursue charges for the crime committed. Furthermore, the passing of the victim has left a profound void in the prosecution's ability to seek justice. This unfortunate turn of events underscores the importance of reforming statutes of limitations to ensure that perpetrators are held accountable for their actions and that victims receive the justice they deserve. After 44 years of injustice and uncertainty, the murderer will finally be held accountable for his horrific and terrifying actions. While his arrest could not bring back the lovely Patricia, it was a hope for many people who have lost their loved ones in such hideous crimes that they will get justice, even if it will take 4 decades. Now let's hear what you guys have to say about this case. Is it okay to celebrate the victory after 44 years of prolonged injustice? Or should we be furious at the authorities for not being serious enough in the first place? What do you think they can do in order to protect women? And what improvements can be made in the justice system to ensure such cases are resolved as soon as possible and with clarity? Let us know in the comments below, because we love to hear from you.